been very simplistic in nature. We want to reach out across the country. We have identified 4 major themes: Industry 4.0, climate change, health, peace and conflict resolutions. Under the ambit of these themes, we reach out to the people, absorb the information, eventually feeding into the policy ecosystem in order to come up with a cohesive policy framework which impacts all of our lives. Industry 4.0 is the theme that we are going to be deliberating on today. RIS is a think tank of the Ministry of External Affairs. We are almost a 40-year-old think tank. Our area of experts, besides other fields that we cover, Indian Ocean, blue economy, is international trade policy. Therefore, we have been given this task of organizing the brainstorming sessions. We'll be presenting a report to the Ministry of Youth Affairs. The session is being streamed live across all the platforms of the ministry. Besides the Y20 brainstorming session, we are also taking care of G20 University Connect, whereby we have reached out to 75 universities across 50 cities. Therefore, this is my 3rd trip to Kerala this year, and glad to make it an interesting deliberation, and welcome all of you once more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I request our Chief Guest, the Honorable Mayor of Kozhikode Corporation, Dr. Beena Philip, to formally inaugurate the program by lighting the lamp and address the gathering. I also request other dignitaries on the dais to join the Chief Guest in lighting the lamp. Thank you, everyone.
I'm so happy to come to a discussion or a brainstorming session for the youth, because local self-government usually have their share of income exclusively for women, children, differently abled, senior citizens, but not for anything for the adolescents or the youth. So that was the first thing that bothered me when I became a mayor. I was asking them, why not something for the youth? Because in India, in all nations, compared to the other countries, we have the most vibrant youth below 25. So we, India, should think something very seriously for the youth. So I do congratulate Malabar Chamber of Commerce and IRF and Calicut University for organizing such a it's not a seminar, in fact, it's a panel discussion or a brainstorming session, whatever it is. We are going to spend some time with the youth. Usually other people design something for the youth. No. This is what the youth can tell, can express, can fight, can argue, right? Can discuss what their needs are. So, here we have Mr. M.A. Mahboob, President of MCC, we'll call it for Malabar Chamber of Commerce, and Mr. Ali Saeed, I'm sure he'll be joining the discussion again, consultant G20 and RIS representative. And then we have Professor Om Kumar Krishnan, we call him Om, Professor Marketing Management, IIM Kozhikode, the prestigious national institution in our district. And we have the panelists, Ms. Sumida Sudhagar, and Kailash Nath, and Vimal Govind, and Dina Jacob, and Vinay James, and Taufiq Ahmad Moidu, and the other Chamber of Commerce, officials, and many others who have come here, not as a youth, but as the, the collaborating people with this kind of an event here. So, you all know future of work for the youth, not for us. Us means senior citizens. So, industry, that is the most modern, or as Mahboob said, the fourth revolutionary stage of industry, innovation. That is something which we can avoid in any kind of planning or discussion. And 21st century skills. So it's all about creativity, that is innovation. It's about skill that we practice and we become more and more skilled. And it's about the kind of work that we are to do, or right now we are doing, and it's about industry too. Without agriculture and industry, it's very difficult for a country like India to prosper. I think the word agriculture is not included here, but industry can, include agriculture too. So, as a teacher, I used to teach the teachers. The 21st century is a century of communication, skills again, right? Communication is a skill which can be developed. And cooperation. See, here we have collaborated. The university is there, Chamber of Commerce is there, your RIS is there, and whoever is Ali Saeed is a consultant of G20. So more than RIS, Mr. Om Kumar also related with RI, and we are all thinking of G20 once our Prime Minister becomes the President of the G20 nations. The 20 nations including small and big, advanced and advancing, or rather developed and developing. So it's a kind of a mix of the world with more than 50%, covering more than 50% of population of the world. So naturally, we have to listen to what's happening outside the country. So far, we have been thinking of ourselves because that was our primary needs to be met those days. Primary needs like food, water, and roads to travel, right? So that is what we thought of. And when we thought of Green Revolution and Industrial Revolution and our five-year plans, were all thinking of these kind of promotions. Now India is developing very fast. Very fast, we are competing with the advanced nations in many levels, dimensions. And now it is time for us to think about the future of our youth, because we can, if we try, employ almost all our youth in this country itself. If we think in that way, why should our youth go abroad to work and bring us some foreign money? It has been happening. Even before independence, people used to migrate to the different East Asian countries, and here down towards the south, we used to go to Sri Lanka for job. We used to call it Ceylon. And then we started going to Malaysia, Singapore, and then slowly to the Gulf countries, and of course to America, to Australia, to England, and the thought development we had. So now we start thinking of ourselves. Let's take, for example, future of work. What is so special about today's work? The type of work has changed. The time of work has changed. What about the time? It's a 24-hour clock for a worker now. Formerly, this was like from morning till evening. In Malayalam, we say Prabhadam Mudal Pradosham Vare. Because some workers were forced to start their work early morning at 6 o'clock. In Wayanad, it was 5 o'clock in that cold climate. They had to get up at 5 o'clock and start doing work in the field. So that's been changed, and you know why and when. So up till evening. In England, it was not different. Engels, when Marx used to say, I've seen men, women and children going to the coal fields to pick up coal, early morning, in spite of the severe cold. And at dusk, they return. In the group, sometimes you may miss a child because of the gangrene or because the extra cold, the child might have frozen to death. And the parents couldn't see because they were shivering. They cannot even raise their voice. That was the kind of life the workers had those days. That is why we had the scripture-like book, the Capital. So now we are somewhat awakened. We are bothered of our, not only our duties, but our rights too. We know that no one can make us work 24 hours. But if we want, we can. That gig economy, I don't know whether it is gig or jig. I hope it is jig. That is the small scale, work, or the project work, or the contract works, or the works that you hire. Like there is no certain work that you do. We used to ask you, what are you doing? That means your occupation or your job. Now there is nothing like, what are you doing? Oh, for the past 2 years, I'm on a project. So then the other person who listens to you get confused. Do you want to continue with this project? Because he knows that a project will end at some time, right? No, I'll take up another project. I'll do something like, now we have the type of work and the place of work at home. We cannot think of a person doing a work and drawing a salary by simply sitting at home and doing something, typing something on a gadget. That's what has happened. They sit at home, they can work at any time. No restriction of time, no restriction of place, and no restriction of the job, the kind of job that you can undertake. There's so many jobs available, but we people, especially in India, or rather in Kerala, we do not know much about it. In literacy, we were the first. But when it comes to the modern technology, the modern skills, and the modern, employment possibilities or availabilities, we are not that educated. So that is why I told you in the beginning that I'm really happy when there is something is being done for the youth. So those who have come here, instead of keeping mum, you have to speak, you have to discuss what you have gained from here with your friends. Otherwise, the seminar becomes purposeless. It will not have any purpose. Doing something without a purpose is foolishness. So you are here to learn to do something, to learn to think of something, to learn to think of something new possibilities for you and for your friends, and I can even say for your state of Kerala. Since we have the college teachers or the college students here, some researchers might be here, I suppose. I know you all get a chance to criticize the kind of education that you have been, undergoing all these years. It can start from school to college to university. What kind of education are you getting? Think very seriously about it and put forward your innovative, serious suggestions which can be listed and it can be presented to all the university vice chancellors and to the government on to the education of higher education, or both to the education and to the higher education ministers and departments too. So that is the purpose, that is the result of this seminar. Only then this becomes purposeful. So I hope I have spoken too much. So it is time for me to stop. And innovation. My dear ones, innovation was there even when we, the Homo sapiens, the species, evolved. That is a kind of an innovation by nature, right? And then innovation for the human race. They were nomads. They didn't settle anywhere. But as they go on and on and on, at one point, they found agriculture. Then they thought, we will get the food that we want, even if we do agriculture. So they started settle down near the rivers. So we all have river valley civilizations when we think of the ancient civilizations. So that is a turning point. Is it not innovation? They started making homes. Is it not innovation? So from the very journey of the species Homo sapiens, innovations have been going on and on and on. Even when you cook something different and you surprise your family members, you have innovation in that. That is called creativity. So without creativity, nothing grows, nothing advances, nothing progresses. So innovation means it is not a particular skill or a task. It is there everywhere. It is your ability, it is your open-mindedness to have those kind of innovations in every walk of life, in everything that you do, including a letter that you write, including something that you note. Everywhere, at every spot, every minute, there is a chance for innovation. So that's what I mean by innovation. You can have so many other interpretations and readings, but this is my interpretation as well as innovation is concerned and 21st century skills. Critical thinking has been, written. It has been the practice of education in India, because in our constitution it is written that the purpose of education is to instill or to create critical thinking among the youngsters, among students. We don't do that. We try to take back our children to the past glory. If at all it is glorious, we don't know. Because we have nobody in those days who living in those days with us. So it's all what is written and given back to us. So that we believe, and we always, like a nostalgic memory, we always, always think it's something great which we can do again. We cannot. Because life is always moving forward, not backward. So critical thinking is something, or logical thinking or reasoning capacity is something that make you think instead of accepting someone's argument as the be all and end all. No, it's not. You have to think. For that, you have to read. You have to know better. At least you should have the patience to listen to someone who's speaking about those past things. And maybe they're irrational for you to think. There could be something rational. So always you have to read both ways, the past and the future. The available materials, which is in the library of any university or college, you don't use. Instead, you depend only on this gadget. Please don't do that. There are so many other branches of knowledge which gives you the real truth. Unma, in Malayalam we say that. Unma. Adile satyam. Ekalavum nilanilkunnathaanu. Transcending time and place. Adanu unma ennu nammal parayunna oru sadhanam. We call it classic also. We have to depend on that too. So start reading serious books instead of, I've seen certain books which is the best seller in the market, which, the whole content of that book can be, can be abridged into a few pages. But still, it is the kind of language that you love. It's not something literary in sense, but it is a freely flowing language which has some grip on you. And you think it is the greatest book. No, because you haven't read any other serious books. It's always comparison, like make you think whether this is good or the best or something. So it's all relative. So please start reading something classic. It's not novel or drama that I'm meaning some serious works of people that has helped this generation, that has helped people to understand how human beings have developed over the years or over the centuries. So that kind of reading is necessary and that kind of reading is necessary for the teachers. For the teachers, I must say. If teachers do not read, they will be depending on guides which are written. I have seen in East Fort in Trivandrum, there is a second book market. Book writers will come there and they will buy books which are quite old. And when they write book for the present generation, still they depend on those old notes and old essays and old poems. I'm speaking about the language. They are writing that. So many things have happened in this world regarding science. Most of the high secondary schools and colleges, of course, colleges have the facilities to access any kind of journal, any site with the specific knowledge being discussing or being mentioned. They don't use them. Instead, they depend on this. So to know something, you have to use those facilities available with you, especially from UGC. You have accessibility to almost all sites, all journals. You can have the hard copy and also you can refer to what's happening around. So like that, take learning seriously, and at the same time, a bookish knowledge or a subject knowledge alone won't help you. There comes 21st century skills, like soft skill is something that you have to develop. That doesn't mean that you speak unstopping or continuously without thinking of the seriousness of it or the relevance of it in that particular context. No. More speaking is not more skill. It is not for like the speech that was made in the UN by our Vike Krishna Menon. No, we don't want to come to that level, but whatever is, you have to communicate yourself. You have to learn to comfort someone, to solace somebody, right? If an angry client comes to you, you should know how to behave to him. You have to learn to keep silence, and at the same time, you have to learn to defend using language, articulating. You have to know how to defend yourself. But it should be what? A real, honest defense. Not something just to counter the other person's argument or the other person's claims. So like developing a soft skill, especially in communication, is something that you need these days. I was wondering, when in the engineering college, the multinational companies came for interviews for placement. So I was wondering, why are they so particular about the language of an engineer? I mean, to my old brain, an engineer is a kind of a technically oriented person, and he need not have that speaking ability or soft skill for a job. Then I knew why. Because in the corporation, when certain engineers writes their opinion on a particular issue, I could see that argument so clear. Then I asked, who has written this? Because still then I haven't come across such a good, language. Language is not the flowery language or beautiful language. It's a clear language, communicates clearly. That is the language. That is what is needed, right? So I asked, and they said, it is the new engineer, the new executive engineer, Mr. Bijoy. I called him down and I asked him, Bijoy, what did you want to become in your life? He said, a teacher, a Malayalam lecturer. But I told him, you have a very good language. Your language is so clear that what you have written is very clear to me. So that way, then I knew why engineers were selected. And one point of selection is based on their communication skills. So, my dear youngsters, develop good communication, both written and spoken. Otherwise, you cannot put forward your ideas, your arguments, your defense. Sometimes we have to defend ourselves, right? So, through reading that language, the person should know that you are not to be blamed. So that way we have to develop a language or soft skills in our behavior, in our body language, even in a smile that you put on your face. It is needed these days because people, when they come with their problems, they don't want a grumpy face, to look at a grumpy face. Maybe you are serious, but the same, you need not smile at everybody like what I do. It is a default settings on my face, I think, Yes. So I don't want everybody to be like that. But at the same time, a pleasant air about you. A pleasant air. That is the one that we all can maintain if you think very seriously about it. So, and critical thinking, I told you what you have to do, and that is and communication. And constructivism is something based, something related with innovation. Constructing knowledge. It's not that you read something and you believe fully in it and you repeat. No, it's not that. You read something, you use your critical mind, you read something else, then you know something else is to be added. Like you construct an overall idea about an issue or a concept or whatever you do, the work. That kind of constructing knowledge, based on your exposure. The more exposed you are, the more efficient will be, or the more perfect will be the concept that you construct about something else, about your work or your assignment or whatever. So these are the things which I want to discuss right now. I think the 21st century skills I have, and digital skills that you know. Without mentioning, you all know, without that you cannot survive. Even a person of 65 years, I'm a mayor, but you consider my age, I was given to do something, a spotlight presentation. I haven't heard of spotlight presentation so far. So immediately I use this, then this becomes my friend. I've done number of presentations with that pointers, but not with spotlight. It is a pointer, which is an advanced pointer. You can use a USB, and then with that you need not carry your laptop or anything else. That small thing will do all the wonders that you have made into your presentation, whatever. So there are so many things happening around. So you shouldn't feel, I am satisfied with what I have. No, never. Whichever happens, whichever the most modern thing happen, you should know. You need not buy or you need not use, but you should know what it is. Whenever you get a chance to present something, grab at it. Grab at it. That's the way we grow intellectually, knowledgeably also. Our knowledge also become more, will be advanced with all the things happening around us, especially if it is related with your work. Like what Sherlock Holmes always asked to Dr. Watson, why should I know whether the earth is round or flat? Because he considers his work, his chemistry, he's a chemist, he's a chemistry person, and it was chemistry was the basics of his deduction methods. You all might have read of Sherlock Holmes. I don't know whether he has become an old author. Are you reading Sherlock Holmes these days? Have you heard of him? No? Yes, okay, thank God. Because I should know what you people read, which I do not know. I do confess before you. I'm so sorry about that, but you shouldn't be like that because you're youth. I'll have a kind of what I might say, is a kind of a sayanam. Like the fag end of my active life. Active life, I say. It's not life. It is active life. So I needn't. I'm not, you may sometimes wonder then why are you speaking about us to have all the advanced, because you have to use it. I don't have much of a use, I don't know. Anyway, so that is it's not my advice, it's my suggestion when I thought of the 21st century skills. So future of our work depend on learning the kind of industry, and the other day the small micro MSME that you all know, I suppose, otherwise you will be including that in your presentations and panel discussions, right? I don't know, 27th of June was the MSME day. I was in Delhi. I was presenting something there. There were so many people who were doing the micro business, the entrepreneurship, these startups. They were all there. The whole team, all over India. They have selected a few teams, and they were there. I could interact with most of them. Then I knew that our youngsters have a bright future ahead. Similarly, my dear youth participants, you should have a brighter future, because you shouldn't say that we were not aware of it. We were not aware of it. So this is one of the platforms which is available for the youth under the banner G20, since everywhere in our country people are thinking very seriously about the future of the youth, the kind of work that we can do, and everything in an innovative manner for sustainable development. It's not like you do something and you forget. No, it should be sustainable. It should not affect the climate. The climate change that we experience right now is because of our greed and our ignorance. Basically, it's our ignorance. So be very, very alert. You think of the environment. We have no other place to go apart from this Madhrubhumi, or rather this earth, Mother Earth. നമുക്ക് ഇവിടുന്ന് എവിടെയും പോവാനില്ല. അപ്പോൾ the earth will be happy if it can get rid of the Homo sapiens. But we are not happy if something seriously happens to our Mother Earth. So everybody has a belly button. That is our relation with this earth that we live. So whatever business we are in, you have to think of the byproducts or the leftovers or the waste that you discard. You have to think very seriously about it. It's a topic for, what I might say, of discussion for not one day, I suppose, more 2 or 3 days. That much of seriousness is given by all countries over the world for green economy, or what I might say, climate change, and waste management. Every city, all over the world, every city faces problem of waste management. So you as youth, this is not the right venue, I must say, but still have an inkling to know more about that too. That is what I might say, a bonus point that I have added with this. Thank you very much, and I have already inaugurated this function by lighting the lamp, the traditional custom for this part of India, and I think it's been followed in the other part also, right? Lighting the lamp from darkness to light. That is, we have done. Whatever is dark, whatever is unknown for us, we are taking it to the light to know more about it. That's why we inaugurate by lighting a lamp. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you once again.
Thank you for those enlightening words, madam. Now let me welcome the moderator for the brainstorming session, Professor Om Kumar Krishnan, for opening remarks on the theme of discussion, Future of Work, Industry 4.0 Innovation and 21st Century Skills. As a professor of marketing management in IIM Kozhikode and author of the book Emerging Work Trends in Urban India, Professor Om Kumar Krishnan is the right person to act as a moderator for this discussion. Professor, please.
Good morning. Namaskaram. So the first citizen of the city has already given us a good overview of what we are going to do, and she has touched upon most of the points, so it made my job easier when I am going to start my moderation. So my job today is in the second part, where the brainstorming session is going to happen. So I have a very short introduction to make, where I am trying to talk about how we are planning this session. The seriousness of the session is already reflected by the mayor's remarks, right? So let me first take this opportunity to thank the RIS team and the Ministry of Youth Affairs on behalf of Kozhikode and particularly Kerala for selecting our city to be part of the G20 agenda. Like Dr. Ali had mentioned that being from IIM, we had missed the bus on the university front or the educational institution front. So I was very particular in terms of getting at least one program for Kozhikode, not at least for IIM. So I had no hesitation in contacting the MCC, the Malabar Chamber of Commerce, to host this vital event when this offer was made, because I've been interacting with them informally and formally. So I knew that, and the outcome you can see that how we are sitting out here. And we are looking for a very productive ideation session, and the theme repeatedly which has been said, the future of work, Industry 4, innovation and 21st century skills. Out of the 4 themes, although RIS would have allowed to us to take any of the 4, we gravitated towards the future of work, which we found that is the most apt for us. Okay. And let me start by, when I was looking at, how do I conduct this session? So over the last whole month, I was just thinking of, so one of the things which reflected me is, all of you are familiar with the author of Third Wave, Alvin Toffler. So I read it during the closed economy in the 80s. To be honest with you, that time I felt that it was all magical realism. But today, with the work from home and augmented realities, not just phrases, but it's become a way of life. And the incremental transformation in our society due to technological determinism is no longer evolutionary nor linear. So the velocity and breadth of AI or machine learning, IoT, big data, say cybersecurity, are all systematically affecting society, and a workforce prepared for the future is an absolute necessity. So therefore, the emphasis on youth is not unexpected, given that they will be partners in these disruptions and will also construct their own metaverses and multiple universes. So to contribute to wisdom, our selected topic requires a careful deconstruction and a deeper understanding. Some of the starting ideas already has been put forward by the mayor. It is a privilege to serve as moderator among the learned and seasoned panelists, and of course the carefully selected audience. All of you, as you know, have been invited, and one of the objectives is to have an active participation in the session. So how I have planned, now I'll come to the program part. So how we have planned is that each of the 6 speakers initially will get 5 to 10 minutes time to make their introductory remarks. Okay, because all of you are from diverse areas. And we all know that majority of those panelists are founders or chief executive officers of companies they have built over the years, as well as directors and chief technical officers. The educational background of these illustrious individuals are also diverse. When you go through their backgrounds, it is about artificial intelligence, management, engineering, journalism, finance, etc. Okay. So this I'm telling you, although those during the introduction, they will be providing a short profile, but just to warm up, I'm telling you this. So in addition, when you look at the industries which they represent also is financial technology, banking, advertising, robotics, manufacturing, and the startup ecosystem. Okay. And one point which indeed, again reinforcing from what Mayor had requested, MSMEs, the future is how are we looking at that will be reflected in our this thing. What is it that the future, the digital manufacturing, and what is the role of MSME, and of course we have an investor also here. So following this, I will solicit specific perspectives on the day's topic from the speakers, which I will give a small reflection now. After that, the floor is open to participants and panelists for debates and discussion in whichever language you want to speak. I will try and make it possible to translate, okay, in whichever languages I know. Okay. And because I don't want to miss any of your ideas lost, okay. And my role is to create a meaningful avenue and this conversation so that we garner useful insights. One of the things which Mr. Ali said is one of the primary objective, that there should be things which he should be able to take away from these sessions, which will again resonate in terms of a policy framework. Now, when we are organizing such an event, okay, I do recognize the difficulty because of the diverse orientation. We have a plethora of ideas, and what I attempted, I'm going to attempt, is to map each of the speakers to a topic, because they had given a set of 4 objectives. Some of the things which are like, say, about IR 4.0 and future skills, about innovations, okay, work-ready force. So I'm humbly trying to make this so that the conversations are productively made, and not necessarily to restrict all the panelists' ideas. Their ideas are also very much open, but I'm trying to map so that we move in a very coherent way and take some insights. Okay, so please feel free to talk in your others one. So the mapping, looking at your background only, I have made. Some of you I know directly or indirectly. So Kailash Nath, who works in the brokerage industry, can speak about the new types of industries and employment anchored in IR 4.0, plus your own experience. Sumida Sudhagar, she is basically in the advertising industry, so can discuss in terms of the skills necessary to address this talent gaps, which is happening between the jobs which are being created and the current time. So again, reflects back to what was mentioned about the education. And of course, the changing nature of the technology. Okay. Because the 4th industrial revolution is not only about technology, but also about commerce with people. So Vimal can contribute to the role of automation and machine learning, stimulating, because his field is in terms of elimination of the drudgery of labor, right? Many jobs which are, and we talk about cobots, so that even women can participate in the factory floors where they were lesser in number. Okay, so those ideas can be written, because he is the best person in this, and through that, in terms of better management practices. Tawfiq, again known to me for so many years, can shed light on whether automation will eliminate the worker, right? There's something from the other side where when you are bringing in automation, and again improved practices, and what are the check and balances in terms of the social repercussions. Dina, with a plethora of experience in digital banking and allied technology, can again focus on this new payments that are accelerating the emergence of what gig worker, right? And again, the customer itself transforming into a co-producer. Okay, so those ideas whereby this digital platforms have enabled, right? And not but the least, Vinay is experience in terms of as an investor. Okay, so always I am also very curious to be on the other side, because most of the time we end up as faculty members helping out the startups, okay, in terms of their ideas or bouncing with them on new products. But then recently only I started, interacting with the investors, because they have a more bird's view of what this startup economy is and how is it generating employment. And one important aspect is this innovations intersecting domains. Okay, this cross-border innovations, because that is also one of the themes which RIS is looking. How do you see that? Okay, so again, I'm telling you, this is just to have some kind of mapping with the objectives, but your experience and your ideas, you're always free to this. Okay, and just to end up, the recent government data and policymakers' vision estimate that the Indian economy need to generate around 8 to 10 million jobs based on population growth rate. This is from a recent article, but the labor force is within the bracket of 15 to 64, okay, age group. That is again based on ILO. But when we look at like this 15 years, actually the next 15 years, within a gap of next 15 years is where the current youth, if somebody is at the age of 15, is going to do that. So when I look at horizon, I look at from that aspect. There is a lot of, the data shows that it's not about 8 to 10 million, but it's almost like a 20 million job which is there. And this is what makes it interesting and complex, that whether this is the job with the wage or this informal jobs, which on one side we talk about bringing in people more from the informal to the formal sector, but the other side is that I don't want to be a formal employee. Okay, so this kind of conflicting aspects should make it interesting also. Our talks will be interesting. And the skills needed to enhance this, that is our big challenge. So now, after the break, we will again assemble, and the dignitaries will be replaced by the panelists. But there is no gap between, although there is a small elevation, you can ignore this elevation between the panelists and the participants. Please feel free, and except during their introductory remark, you can always raise your hand. This is what I do tell in the class also. And usually in the class I do say that, if there is a very large ideological issue, we will discuss it in the end of the, but here I am moderating it. Okay, so please feel free and ask or clarify, and let us make this a real productive discussion. And Ali should be carrying more baggage. Okay. Thank you very much. Again, looking forward for a great discussion. So now on to the MC.
Thank you, Professor. Now let us take a short break to prepare ourselves mentally and physically for the intellectual discourse that is about to follow. Tea and refreshments have been arranged. The brainstorming session is scheduled to start in 15 minutes. The participants are requested to kindly adhere to the time frame to ensure smooth conduct of the program. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഭരണകാലത്ത് കേരളത്തിലെ പാലക്കാട് മുതൽ വടക്കോട്ടുള്ള പ്രദേശങ്ങളാണ് മലബാർ എന്നറിയപ്പെട്ടിരുന്നത്. സ്വതന്ത്ര കേരളത്തിലെ കണ്ണൂർ, കോഴിക്കോട്, വയനാട്, മലപ്പുറം, പാലക്കാട് എന്നീ ജില്ലകളാണ് മലബാർ എന്ന് വിശേഷിപ്പിക്കപ്പെട്ടിരുന്ന സ്ഥലങ്ങൾ. മലബാറിലെ വികസനത്തിനും വാണിജ്യ മേഖലയിലെ മലബാറിന്റെ ഉന്നമനത്തിനും വേണ്ടി 1929 രൂപീകൃതമായ മലബാർ ചേംബർ കേരളത്തിലെ തന്നെ ഏറ്റവും പാരമ്പര്യമുള്ള ചേംബറുകളിൽ ഒന്നാണ്. AKTKM ഗുപ്തൻ നമ്പൂതിരിപ്പാട്, സെയ്ദ് നാഗ്ചി അമർസി പീപ്പിൾ തുടക്കകാലങ്ങളിൽ പ്രവർത്തിച്ചിരുന്നത്. വ്യാപാര വ്യവസായ മേഖലയുടെ സമഗ്ര വികസനത്തിനായി നാടിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാന സൗകര്യങ്ങൾ വർദ്ധിപ്പിക്കേണ്ടതുണ്ട് എന്ന വസ്തുത മനസ്സിലാക്കിയ മലബാർ ചേംബർ ദേശീയ സംസ്ഥാന പാതകളുടെ വികസനം, IT സംരംഭങ്ങൾ എന്നിവ അവയിൽ ചിലത് മാത്രമാണ്. 9 ദശകങ്ങൾ പിന്നിട്ട മലബാർ ചേംബർ ഓഫ് കൊമേഴ്സ് പ്രസ്തുത ഉദ്ദേശ ലക്ഷ്യങ്ങളുടെ പൂർത്തീകരണത്തിനായി ഇന്നും അഹോരാത്രം പ്രവർത്തിച്ചു വരുന്നു.
For everyone's attention, we are about to start the session in 5 minutes. I repeat, we are about to start the session in 5 minutes. For everybody's attention, we are about to start the session in 5 minutes. I repeat, we are about to start the session in 5 minutes. Thank you. Our session is about to begin. I kindly request all the participants to once again occupy their respective seats. We request you all to keep your mobile phones on silent mode. Moderator for this session is Professor Om Kumar Krishnan. He is a professor in marketing management at IIM Kozhikode, a PhD and MPhil from IIT Mumbai. He has earlier worked with Drishti and Lovelantis Mumbai. Teaches at IIM Amritsar, IIM Sirmaur, and Chonam National University, South Korea as a visiting faculty. Professor, I invite you to the dais. As our panelists, we have 6 young and eminent personalities who has proved themselves in their respective fields. As I call upon each panelist, I request them to occupy their seats on the dais. May I now request Ms. Sumita Sudhakar to occupy her chair. With an impressive career spanning over 2 decades, Ms. Sumita has garnered extensive experience across various facets of media and advertising. Her journey began with renowned television channels such as Ancianet, Malayalam Manorama, and ABP News, where she showcased her versatility as a television anchor and successfully translated a Malayalam novel, Vaishnavum Vigneshwaramum, into English, demonstrating her exceptional linguistic prowess. For the past 13 years, Ms. Sumita has been at the helm of MBO Advertising, an advertising creative and marketing agency she founded. Under her guidance, the agency has thrived, delivering exceptional results and earning a reputation for excellence. I welcome ma'am to the dais. Our next panelist is Mr. Kailash Nath. I invite him to the dais. Mr. Kailash Nath is the Chief Technical Officer at Zerodha, India's largest stockbroking firm. He is an open source technologist and has a PhD in artificial intelligence from Middlesex University. He is also the founder at Rain Matter Foundation, one of India's largest climate change and environment specific funder. Welcome, sir. Our third panelist is Mr. Vimal Govind. I request him to join us on the dais. Mr. Vimal Govind MK is a notable robotic engineer and product architect from Kerala. As the co-founder and managing director of Gen Robotics Innovation, Mr. Vimal leads in-house technical team while actively involved in the administration of marketing and business strategies. The flagship product of his company, Bandi Coat, has primarily focused on the empowerment of sanitation workers and their lives. His contribution to the robotic industry have been duly acknowledged through some international recognitions such as Asia Inspiration Award from Government of the Maldives at South Asian Youth Summit and Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 recognition in the manufacturing and energy category. Welcome, sir. Our next panelist is Ms. Deena Jacob. I invite her to the dais. Ms. Deena Jacob is the co-founder and CFO of Open, Kerala's one and only unicorn and the world's fastest growing digital banking enterprise. She has over 18 years of experience in building and establishing finance teams from scratch of early stage startups. Ms. Deena won the Best CFO Startup Award from BW CFO in August 2021. She was also a recipient of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants Most Influential CFOs Award in 2016 and was chosen for Top 100 CFO Role of Honor by CFO India in the Management Controls category in 2017. Recently, she was also featured in Forbes India New Age CFOs list. Welcome, ma'am. Our fifth panelist is Mr. Vinay James Kainadi. Welcome onto the dais, sir. Mr. Vinay is a serial entrepreneur, industrialist, and early stage investor based in Kerala. He is an MBA graduate from London Business School and an alumnus of the Venture Capital Unblocked program at Stanford University. He actively invests in startups and is the chairman and managing director of VentureWay, a unified global startup ecosystem, and the president at Ideatory, an incubator and venture studio that supports idea state startups. Welcome, sir. Our last panelist is Mr. Taufik Ahmed Moidu. I welcome you to the dais, sir. Mr. Taufik Ahmed Moidu is the executive director of PK Steels Casting Private Limited, a leading industrial unit under PK Group of companies which covers steel, floor mills, real estate, construction, plantation, education, healthcare, charitable institution, and much more. He is a mechanical engineer graduate from Cardiff University, UK, and also completed his MSc Material Science and Engineering from University of Sheffield, UK. Having studied in India and the UK, travelled extensively around the world, has made him very open to new culture and inculcate innovative thinking. He is the member of Indian Institute of Foundry Men. He is the recipient of Forest Polymer's Young Founder Men of the year 2019, presented by Indian Institute of Foundry Men. Welcome, sir. I now request the moderator to kindly take over the session.
Good morning again. Now that the formalities are all over, we will get into the real brainstorming session. So, when I looked at the profile and the backgrounds and trying to map with the topics, there was no specific order, because that is what makes it again interesting and complex. Like I said, let me give each of the panelists to 5 to 10 minutes time. There is a timekeeper also. We will be giving you the signal. And let each of them tell, so that all of you are familiar with two things. One is their own experience. Okay, like they are from the diverse fields, and they have built up their own companies, and they have taken larger strategic decisions which involve work, employment, skills, innovations, etc. So we will give them that time. After all of them have done that, then I will raise. So I have some specific one or two questions which I'll be raising to them. But that time you are free to interrupt and ask your questions also, so that this becomes more participatory. Okay. So initially, so there is no order for this. So let me call Kailash first. Okay. So either you can sit there and speak, or you can use the podium for the initial remarks.
I think I'll just sit here. Sure. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm Kolkotarnana. So I'm Kailash. I'm a technologist, and I've been heading technology at Zerodha. We're a financial services firm over the last 10 years. And I keep this very brief. So today Zerodha is the largest stockbroking firm in India, and that transformation has really happened over the last 4 years. So when people see it from the outside, people figure that we've had like a secret formula to scaling, but we haven't. So what has really worked for us in terms of innovation is really patience and grit, and as an organization, our ability to avoid FOMO. So I hope to surface some of these points in the upcoming discussion. So a first principle-based frugal approach to organization building, skill building, team building, and product building is what we've taken. And we were at it patiently for a very long time, and there were outlier events like the COVID lockdown, which really catapulted the entire industry. That worked in favor. So we've seen that if you have that sort of grit, and if you're not really in a rush to attain certain material goals, get to X number of users or X revenue, etc., it's possible to build resilient businesses. The odds are much higher. So that has really been our approach, and I hope to talk about that approach today. And secondly, about myself, I'm a technologist. I've always been a software engineer from a young age. And my educational research background is artificial intelligence, and that was in 2010-11. And I haven't been a practicing AI person for the last decade. And I've been an outside observer of this space. But now we are, I think, at a tipping point when it comes to AI/job/skills plus the future of humanity in general. So the conversation has come back to forefront, and even the very definition of jobs and skills at this point have to be reevaluated. So over the last 6 months or so, owing to very specific breakthroughs, I've just been personally mulling. As an organization, we've been trying to understand the implications of some of these newer technologies and what it means for jobs and skill building. Just to cite one example, GPT-4, one specific technology, we evaluated it and we figured that if we were to use it in our organization, 200 people would just lose their jobs. So we were forced to create an AI policy to address the rising AI anxiety in our own employees? So I think these sort of questions will these sort of scenarios will start playing out everywhere across industries and sectors. I'm hoping we could discuss some of that today. And yeah, I'll end my intro with that. Thank you.
Let me come to Tina, if you're from the finance.
Thank you, and it's a privilege to be a part of this brainstorming discussion, especially on how to looking into the future, how it's going to unfold. And starting where we are and looking at what are the requirements of the skill sets in the industrial revolution, the fourth revolution that we are witnessing, it's good to look back into the other revolutions which has happened earlier. The first, of course, was where, morning, I couldn't, we heard the captivating speech from Beena Madam, and I couldn't agree with her more. It has always been happening from a manual side, and the first revolution happened when it was steam powered. Can we even imagine, today when we are talking about all of the different technologies, it was steam powered. And then came the electricity, and then came the initial part of the technology. And if you look at the timing of each of these revolution, it has been like probably the 1800s to where we stand today. We have seen the two revolutions, which when we talk about, the new change which is happening, it's always about the disruptive innovation part of it. And we should consider ourselves privileged to be a part of this particular time frame where this disruption is happening, and it doesn't happen all the time, right? In 200 years, this is the fourth time probably. And in this fourth has happened very, very quickly compared to the other two. And that also shows the responsibility we have on our shoulders in terms of what we need to plan for the future. That's where today as a generation, when we are speaking about probably, most of us, when we talk about unlearning, what we also should be doing is what can we actively do to make this unlearning much lesser, and compared to what we learn is going to be future ready. And that's where, as we speak, it's very important right from the foundational, the curriculum, the education that we are talking about onwards should be future ready. And that's one part I want to keep in front of all of you. And being a founder and entrepreneur in this space, in the banking and the finance space, which for the last 6 years, I can very well tell you, we crafted one of the value systems for our company. When we had the vision, mission, and the value statements we put very carefully: hustlers, never settle, then curious learners, and authentic self. And this was from experience, because when we started looking at disrupting, or rather making a change in the entire space, where what we do is we craft a solution for small businesses which can be a default operating system to run their business. When I talk about default operating system, this also came from the fact that historically when we are doing business, payments happen in the banking system. And that, again, with technology coming in, a lot of things, layers got added on top of it, be it UPI, the entire India stack, on the payment stack which we have created in India, world class, the world's best, I would say. So that and the inclusion from a digital inclusion, wherein right from the internet penetration to the internet infrastructure, everything that we have seen for 1 billion people economy that we see, how much of a penetration we were able to achieve. All this put together put us in a position wherein the legacy systems, the infrastructure that we have been used to in banking is not keeping pace, is not able to keep pace with the requirements of the businesses, be it. And when it comes to small businesses, we have seen the access to that becomes even more complex, because that becomes extremely expensive affair. One, to get the skills, and to deploy, and even to get access to the new age digital wave that is happening. So this made us come to how do we solve this problem for this vast majority of 75-80 million SMEs that exist in India, make their life simpler so that an entrepreneur can focus on their day-to-day doing business activity, which is where the customer interaction, how to craft better products for them, can be the first point of thought and not how to run my business, including the governmental and the regulations which are there, which is where we decided to bring in technology. Now, the challenge was, when you talk about newer technologies, one, there is a legacy infrastructure which we need to deal with. And second, there are newer and newer skill sets and different ways in which you have to solve if you are looking at a disruptive innovation. And that's where we found this challenge of where do you get the talent from? And that's where most of the time we have deployed things like the best, which has even worked out for us in terms of either from technology or even from the skill set side, is where we made people, took right from freshers to people who have been in this phase of digitization, and then started giving them on the job training, or giving them upskilling and reskilling in terms of what they have to do on the job in a specific direction. Because what's also used to happen is that since we're at the cusp of banking and disrupting the banking part of it, there is a strange need of very deep understanding of the subject matter of how it is happening today, and then that not getting biased with that, but moving forward into how the future should look like, which is where not everyone could have that ability of switching over from the traditional to the new. Probably, that includes even us, for that matter. I'm not excluding anybody in the company. And that's where we felt that curious learning part, never settler attitude and aptitude. And that's something which we have to foundationally put it right from the preliminary education onwards, which also points to a bigger change in the entire economy that we will see the way we work. It could be, today we call about the gig economy, but what I'm mentioning is maybe we are looking at days wherein you might not be working on one problem or one company continuously. The whole thing of this employment could even go away, which is where more and more entrepreneurs should be the entrepreneurial thinking, which is what hustling and never settle kind of attitude should be inculcated, than just getting tuned for, you just learn for getting a certain job, right? Which is where, to what Kailash also was just mentioning, if a GPT comes and takes away 200 jobs, it's not like, yes, of course, that the question there is which job is being taken. And is there going to be a displacement, or it's going to be like shrinkage of job? So the fact is that if 200 jobs in a company is taken, or in a company is taken, from where else this is being pushed into? And that's where the entire revolution is an ecosystem we should look at. And that's why when we look at banking also, we never believe that bank will just vanish, regulations will just vanish. And what we are doing is a very collaborative approach with the legacy banking system. If we are in a position to, can we actually bring in a middleware which interacts with the customer, which is powered with the new age technologies and solutions, which is where the different skill set would be required, interact with the traditional trust building and the incumbent, and there is a central regulator, and then can you actually interact even globally? So that's how we are thinking about the way in which we disrupt, and this is going to happen in every industry. We will see jobs or the current streams that we are upskill or skilling the youth. Those jobs might not even exist. Then we have to actually channelize the youth right from the beginning, both in terms of aptitude, interaction, and then comes the skill set in terms of how we are going to reskill or even skill them in the right way for being future ready. That would be something which I want to put in front of everyone.
Okay, so the first two panelists, both having a finance background, where Kailash was mentioning about the evolution of this company, and especially the acceleration it got during COVID time, and the patience, and looking forward to that. And one of the things when I looked at this future of job, obviously when Dina mentioned about ChatGPT, so that is a topic, when in classroom discussions also, we would like to keep it parked on this side, okay, because we can sit here and this thing, but still we cannot escape it. So we will come back to that. But interestingly, the ideas in terms of the, the future for the SMEs, and a key point which is coming is it's not just getting a job. It is that because the skills may not match in future. So how do you find a job? That is a skill which is to be inculcated, because there is no guarantee about what is. And she has touched upon the banking industry. And I'm sure that those who are looking at the way the finance industry is moving will have a lot of questions on that. So please keep up your mind. Now I thought that we will also, this is a time for disruption. So let us hear from an investor and the startup ecosystem, which is, you know, that outside the box thing in a formal job network. Yeah, Vinay.
So, so I see this as a huge opportunity, a huge opportunity for all of us, particularly in Malabar and India. To define an industrial revolution, we're essentially talking about a non-linear growth in productivity that is empowered by technology. All four, including this one, all four industrial revolutions was pretty much that. So whenever there is a non-linear growth, there is an arbitrage opportunity. There is an opportunity for abnormal profit. In economics class, they tell you that arbitrage opportunities do not exist. You only can get normal profit, except for small windows where there are arbitrage opportunities. Now in the world, because of the nonlinear growth, there are huge arbitrage opportunities, which people looking particularly for these opportunities will be able to identify. So a lot of people are talking about surviving through this industrial revolution and all the changes. I would say I've seen maximum growth coming from those who are looking at thriving, looking to identify opportunities for disruptive growth. And there are a lot of attributes, a lot of factors, a lot of focus areas which I can identify and pinpoint in these people, in these startup founders probably, that kind of indicate an inclination in them to identify these growth opportunities. But if I'm to bring it down to identify patterns, I'll probably start out with a learning mindset. So shelf life of regular conventional education is super low, as we know. You need to continuously learn. And when the market is so dynamic, it is only by continuously learning and improvising that you can retain your competitive advantage. So learning mindset is extremely important. Even when it comes to learning, I would say multidisciplinary learning has a much higher chance for disruption. In fact, somebody did mention that because learning generally always happened in silos and people go deep into their subjects. But disruption and innovation, disruptive innovation usually happens when learning is multidisciplinary. So even when we recruit talent, we love having people from very diverse spaces trying to do the same thing. And we see that is where there is synergy. That is where there is this whole confluence of different ideas that come together, and that is where innovation happens. So even in founding teams, we've noticed that. Another attribute is, another big factor is the fact that the world is much smaller and much flatter now. So the companies who've looked at identifying that potential, leveraging the fact that the world is much smaller, have had huge margins. Again, it got something to do with the arbitrage opportunity, because globally there is information asymmetry. As in, you stay in a Calicut, information asymmetry is minimal. You work between a Calicut and a Silicon Valley and a Nigeria, the information asymmetry is a lot more. So there is scope for abnormal profits. Margins are higher. So the world is much smaller right now. You can sit here and cater to markets everywhere. I've also seen this growing trend of founders working with people in different other geographies, finding co-founders from different parts of the world. So what we do at VentureWay, which is we're working on this thesis that we could have one unified global startup ecosystem. So we've actually been engaging and bringing on board universities, incubators, accelerators, government bodies like KOCM. We've been working with different government bodies across the world, Latin America, Africa, Eastern Europe, and the Western world, investors from all these places, co-founders, potential aspiring co-founders from all these places, and bringing together teams. And the sheer potential, like even things like market access. You have two founders of brilliant techies sitting in India. Their ability to penetrate an American market is so much more the moment they identify a co-founder from the US market. Multicultural skills also become very important in this context when you're looking at the globe as one. In fact, my 7-year-old son now learns Spanish, French, Hindi, Malayalam, and English, so 5 languages. And I believe that is extremely important for the future because, again, the information asymmetry, the gap can be leveraged to your advantage. The world is much smaller now. You can't sit in isolation in any part of the world and not understand how a consumer or a partner or another stakeholder in your ecosystem exists or things in another part of the world. So, yeah, so that is another multiculturalism, leveraging the fact that the world is much smaller right now. And another factor that a lot of people were mentioning is you need to push beyond the horizon. The ones who are thinking of solutions, who take nothing for granted. I keep telling founders that, and the founders who are smartest and who actually manage to innovate the most are the ones who take nothing for granted. Question longevity, question climate change, question what's beyond Earth, question what's out there in space. There are tons of... Humanity is still far way from where we can potentially get to. And with ChatGPT, so like with whatever has been happening, everyone's worried about disruption. Jobs never, like someone else was also suggesting, I don't believe job losses are going to happen with any industrial revolution. It didn't happen with the first 3. Very clear statistics show that. And it's not going to happen with the 4th one also. It's just that the composition of the workforce needs to be reimagined. I have a content creation initiative for our startups. We have a head of communications. She used to take 5 to 6 hours minimum to kind of come up with one post. And I couldn't recruit people from outside the industry because you need a good combination of communication skills plus domain expertise to actually create content that's relevant for us. But now we have started using interns with probably 0 experience, and the first thing an intern does is take an 18-hour ChatGPT prompting course. And because we realized that if you can't fight it, you might as well integrate it and use it as something that could supercharge your entire team. And now we have interns who add so much more value to us, and all the head of communication needs to do is kind of vet it. She takes 10 minutes per post or content piece that is created. So I believe we can leverage these technologies to our advancement. And then what do humans do with all the time that's freed up? What they did with the last 3 industrial revolutions. Tomorrow we can look at what is out there in space. You can look at sustainability, building, making sure that the environment is a lot more, the world is a lot more sustainable a place to live in. There are a lot more things that humans can do. We still live for 100 years max. We can probably try 200. There are millions of other things that we can do. The calculator made us, the calculators, computers. Today you have AI telling us what you could do, what sales are going to be 1 year from now. So you don't need 10 analysts from an EY to tell you that. So, yep, so I know I kind of reached, so I'm going to stop with that. I think I kind of put too many things out there, so I'll carry on.
Yeah, we want too many things, and that is what is expected from the, and like you said about the disruptions. Again, interesting to come back to the ChatGPT again. I will park it on the side only. So we will move on to the manufacturing sector, and I would ask Taufik to sing. How do you see your own experience?
Hello, good afternoon. First of all, thank you for having me here. Primarily, I will be able to contribute on the manufacturing sector, upskilling, reskilling, new skilling, Industry 4.0, and that side of things. PK is primarily has many verticals, but primarily the area that I represent is the manufacturing side, where we make castings for the oil and gas industry, heavy engineering, and other earth-moving equipments. So if you really look at it, when I looked at statistics over the last 5 years in terms of the manufacturing sector, I thought it would be the one area where the country is employing more and more people as things are going further. But actually, if you look at the statistics from 2017 to 2022, the employment in the manufacturing sector has almost come by half. So we used to employ almost around about 55 million people, whereby today we do only 27 million, which I thought was very alarming. So in an industry like us, where the entry barrier is high, the skilling is very highly required. Suppose a student graduates from university, it takes almost around about 24 to 48 months to make him ready for the work that we do today. So primarily the focus with HR and the policies within the company is to have a very good training sort of system to make sure they're ready for a very safety sensitive sort of environment in where we work. So really, if you look at it in the industry that we represent, India was always considered a low-cost sourcing country. That low-cost sourcing country tagline has changed now over the last couple of years from low-cost sourcing to best-cost sourcing. So today, when we look at the subjects that we are looking at today, like innovation, Industry 4.0, upskilling, our sort of idea in this would be how integration can happen on these fields, how we can be more productive, because when we really compare our sort of tagline from best cost sourcing country, we need to move that to the best innovative country, an innovative tagline. So whatever the world requires in sort of a manufacturing space should be sort of available in India. So when you really compare India, the primary competition always looks at China. So when you look at China and India, the main difference is on the productivity, the capital that is freely available in China. So those are the sectors where, we are really, trailing behind. The innovation is trailing behind. So in this sort of space, the best space to look at is Singapore as a country. Over the last, I think, 2 decades, they've been working with the Skills Future program in Singapore, whereby enterprises and the government have had a dialogue in terms of what is the skilling required in today's sort of environment, today's sort of economy. So if it's artificial intelligence, if it's sort of Industry 4.0, if it's sort of other areas in which, manufacturing sectors need to focus on, they look at the skills gap that is there in the industry and in the market. They collaborate with industry partners, and then they provide in universities, polytechnics, sort of extra credits for students who take up these courses. And when they take up these courses, they also get a slight monetary advantage. Now, in terms of India as a country with the population that we have, may be a difficult sort of aspect to look at, but primarily that sort of gap in the market is definitely there. And when you look at new age technologies where companies like us are trying to develop and go forward in, like additive manufacturing, 3D printing, those sort of areas, we do still see a big skills gap that is available in the market. So then we look at outside universities to collaborate, that is maybe in Germany, and host sort of symposiums to better improve sort of the workforce that is available in India. But like Vinay also already said, I don't think automation will completely sort of eliminate a workforce. I think it is up to companies like us to engage the workforce, reskill them, and deploy them in a manner in which the company is sustainable. Because the most important part of any company is, if you say MSMEs, any company's goal is to be large scale. You don't want to be medium, you don't want to be small, you want to be large. So when you want to sort of skill this workforce, you want to skill that workforce, redeploy it in an area where productivity is the focus, sort of scaling up the company is the focus, and that is a requirement in the order of the day, I would say. So in terms of India as a manufacturing country, the problem is that the divide between India and China is so large, the scale of the companies in China is so big, thereby India has not been able to be competitive. So if you really look at it, the opportunities are there. Most of the other panelists have also said that. And in terms of going forward, I think if you really focus on areas like this, I think there is a huge opportunity we had to grow the company, grow the country, grow the industry as at large, and help the workforce as well at large. Yeah, that's about. Thank you.
Thank you, Taufik. So when I was looking at the data, so I'm very happy that the optimism shown from the manufacturing, because when we look at the studies by ILO, they don't see that much of a hope or this for the manufacturing sector. And bringing back your point about this comparison with China. So this is an interesting phase because India is known as a superpower in terms of the services, mainly driven by the software and other. The second problem is that if our future jobs are from manufacturing, then it should be capital intensive. Like he very well said that China has that capability, but we may not have in terms of the even digital manufacturing, if IR 4.0. So whether that capital intensive. The second part is where he may not agree is that the wage, the aspiration of the youth and the will come. I'm just throwing the point to you that the wage has been more or less that kind of constant, and a lot of comparison between China and our industrial clusters are being made. So that is one. So then again, we cannot ignore the agriculture sector, which our mayor also had mentioned, like future. So there is this McKinsey report which says that by 2030, India will have 450 million non-farm jobs. So that is the new this one, that people are going to move away from the farm. The other kind of industrialization, obviously, capitalistic farmers, and this IR 4.0 will invade that also, the supply chains and those things. Again, the capital intensive aspects might be coming. So it will be interesting to see. But I really, thus that you are also resonating with Vinay that the opportunities are there in terms of despite disruptions, but here also reskilling and doing that. So now we will again move into the manufacturing aspect only. So we will look at what Vimal has to say, because again, automation, okay, that is that heart of whatever when we say about IR 4.0. Yeah, sure.
Hello, am I audible? Okay, so actually this is not normally a kind of speech that I do every day in my normal career. So I just thought, and I also created a small note as well, just to stick to the points. First of all, it's really a great privilege to be here and also with such an eminent panelist. And it's a great opportunity for me to speak about the future of the work as well as the industry, skills, innovations and everything. And before I begin, I just want to thank Ajayan sir as well as Mehboob sir for inviting me for this forum, and entire Chamber of Commerce and Y20 RIS for conducting this particular program in Calicut. A little bit about what I do. I started a company from campus called Gen Robotics, and what we do is like, maybe it's since because we are from India, even though I do robotics and AI, we are not thinking of replacing people, rather we are thinking of empowering them in whatever way we can do. And we work on the sector, the Gen Robotics vision, more on the sector like social aspect and how to use robotics and AI for solving social issues. Manual scavenging in sanitation is one of the issues we are trying to solve. that people enter into these gutters and enter into underground drainage system, and they have to maintain it by putting their labor inside for the sake of society. So I feel personally this is not the job a human should does, and this is something where we feel happy to give it to automation. So that is one sector we are working. And now we have a lot of solution in this space, a fleet of variety of robotic devices for handling confined space problem, including oil and gas, sanitation, and nuclear sector also, because we're harmful to life. And we are also recently ventured into health sector. What we does in this sector is like we are empowering people with the disability. The people who's encounter stroke or spinal cord injury, they have this issue of a temporary disability, and we require specific treatment in physiotherapy and all. This is not currently it is being done majorly by manually, and that is having a lot of limitation. We are introducing robotics for empowering that sector and make people able again in a much more faster phase using technology. But this particular forum actually made me to thought about, not about what we do in robotics and AI, but what collectively happening in robotics and AI. Last 3 days I was in great fear, first of all, because I just realized that, like what they were saying, ChatGPT and all, this AI tools which is now creating in the world has tremendous power to replace human from the work. So it is reality, I don't know why people really being really optimistic on this, but definitely like how the industrial revolution happened, machines take away our physical effort. Just like that, this new AI machines which we are creating, and already, their power is really shown to the world. So there is a saying like, if you show the world how that God can bleed, the world will consume him, the God. So that is what now happening. And in very soon we can see all our mental faculty that we are using in our work being replacing by artificial intelligence. People maybe resist this movement. Obviously it is happened even in industrial revolution also. But this is where world is going to, and I also feel this is required for the survival of our species to the future, in order to solve variety of problems that we are encountering in our, when we go to future. So I just want to put it in a, real, optimistic and maximum kind of scenario where robotics and AI is going to be. The fear that I had is not because of, we can't live in the era when robotics and AI is at peak. That not due to getting a living, because I feel due to different type of economical forces, we can still live in the era of robotics and AI in its peak without doing any work. That's how the mass manufacturing is already did in the industry. The cost of goods comes down. So when AI started to deploy in variety of our day-to-day operations, we don't need any money specifically to live in that world. But my fear was something else, like we are so trained in a way that our day-to-day life, we are spending 8 hours in work. So what we do if we don't want to contribute to the society in a way of work? So this specific aspect, probably a trailer of this is already been experienced by many of you guys during the COVID time. So we just started to get panic, not being that valuable. And the fear of we can easily be replaceable by technologies like artificial intelligence. This is my fear. So I put my thoughts, because I want to solve this mental issue that I also came into. I want to solve it, so I put my effort in identifying, what else we are. Like when the industrial revolution happened, we identified that we are more than the physical effort, we have a mental faculty that can be put into work. But now we have to ask the question like, what we are more than the mental faculties, the intellectual capability of a human mind. So AI is definitely an extension of this. That's where I identified that, more than a intellectual capability, we have something called consciousness. We have something called self-awareness. I'm not putting into philosophical sectors, but I feel the power of consciousness and self-awareness in many of the innovations and creativity and arts which is humans are doing. How we function is not like how AI function. I'm not sure whether you can identify the difference, but most of our creativity and innovations are coming from a perspective of self-awareness. We go through different types of day-to-day experiences in our life, and this different types of experience register something in our heart, the gut feeling kind of thing in our consciousness. That's how we identify innovation. That's how we identify a new era of beginning. That's how the innovations happen. That's how AI started to happen. But what AI is currently doing is like, it just collect all the informations of whatever the innovations which is happened in the society. There is data, like these are some of the innovation, these are some of the art which is there, and it's extract information in a pure logical sense, and it just put it into some kind of form. It still feels like an innovation, but it's not a real innovation. AI does not know the meaning of it. And in every innovation and every creativity, that meaning makes a lot of sense. And that's only human can experience due to our self-awareness. And because of that self-awareness only, we have meaning to love, we have meaning to empathy, and we have a lot of meaning that make us human being. So I feel in the world of AI, if there is a job that will be actually utilizing these faculties, the consciousness faculties, the self-awareness faculties, things like that. And I feel a job of a receptionist will be more, important and valued than a job of an engineer, because that utility oriented kind of things will be definitely can do better by AI in upcoming future. And I also feel the jobs like, movie stars, maybe movie stars and all will be there in entertainment industry and singing industry, but the background people and all will be easily replaced by AI avatars and all. So this is all just, wide core predictions of what is going to happen. And we still give value to the works which is handmade. Even right now also it is there. Even in the industrial era also we love handmade kind of thing. So that will be there because it is having a story. It's not about the product. In utility aspect, definitely all these higher powers will take over because that's what we want. But in stories, that kind of things we still buy from human to human. So I feel these kinds of work will be more important in the era of AI. And I also feel the time is already there, so I'm just wrapping up. So again, in order to reach into this specific stage, we require a lot of computational power, and computational power is already in a peak of utilization. So we have to solve the technologies like quantum computing and all in order to get into this stage. But again, the development of AI can really empower that kind of development as well. So I don't think the world is so far like 2030 and all. I feel this will happen in the next 20 years. That's my expectation. But the biggest question we should ask now is like, are we educating our society for this? I feel even though this gives me a panic, but the AI era is going to be really wonderful because we can finally do what we want to do rather than filling the gaps for the society requirement. So shifting that mentality in our education, specifically for from a perspective of what society want to, what we actually love, that is the biggest change I feel which is required in the education sector. And we also need to empower our consciousness and self-awareness kind of level, and we need to put that in place of innovations and creativity and guide AI into future. And last but not least, I feel I only talk about the great part of AI. There's a probability AI can also goes bad against human race, like every tool that human make. But if the great part is quite amazing, the technology can apply it in many of human aspects. So still, I don't think humans will going to stop the expedition into AI. The only thing we should put more ethical understanding and guidance, and the bureaucrats and government should look into the development for the safety of human race. And final thing, if it is even going bad also, I feel AI will give consideration to people like us because we helped in developing. With that, I'm ending my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimal. So I was just trying to see that what Vinay mentioned about not fighting AI, rather integrating it and finding ways to this. And he has added on that redefining innovation itself and looking at innovation of the human being versus the innovation created. Because today there are, in the job scene, it is all about, what is it? Content is the king, and content creators are the ones who are getting jobs, both in-house and from out-house or flexible jobs. But I was a little scared about the metaphor he used that the heroes will be same, the assistants or the co-actors will be this. Very scary for Malayalam movie industry. Already we are trying to kick out our old heroes, but still, so that way, I always thought the other way, that, people create stereotypes and heroes, the assistants still will have job to do that, but you have now reversed the whole perspective. Okay, so now we come to the last but not least the speaker, Sumita. So we would be looking, because she is from the again the content creation and in the marketing side of this, and her struggle also in terms of maintaining these skills and upskills. Okay.
Thank you, sir. So it's a sheer pleasure to be in Calicut. ഞാനൊരു കോഴിക്കോടുകാരിയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ കോഴിക്കോടുള്ള എൻ്റെ കുറേ പഴയ ഫ്രണ്ട്സിന് ആഷിക്ക് പെട്ടെന്ന് ഇപ്പോൾ കയറി വന്നപ്പം ഹീസ് മൈ ഫറൂഖ് കോളേജ് ക്ലാസ്മേറ്റ് ആൻഡ് വെൻ വിനയ് ഈസ് ഹിയർ ഓൾ സോ ഇറ്റ്സ് റിയലി ഹാപ്പി ടു സീ ആൻഡ് thank you MCC, and at the same time I want to have a special thanks to my professor. He has been my teacher at IIMK. At the same time he has been a mentor. Whenever I find the real time issues in marketing, I just call him up and he is always ready to give a different perspective, and it always helps. So my problem, I was just hearing all the speakers, so I just go with Vimal. I can understand, I can relate to that very well, because of course the ChatGPT revolution and all those things happening at one side. The problem with I work in Dubai, it's a very small market, unlike India. So before, unlike the traditional advertising, how I still remember in Cochin, when we had to meet a client, we had to give the visual presentation. It has been a lot of work, and the fun in that work and the people, the team's creativity always contributed to it. But now it is all a part of it's like an automation in the creativity. I'm not still able to compromise with that. Because for example, if I go with a content, in using ChatGPT, the problem with the same client, with multiple competitors coming with the same perspective. Of course, with the prompting course of ChatGPT, you get different words, but the content, the meaning remains the same. But where is that different perspective or authentic creativity coming into it? That is lacking. And the visual, you are bombarded with the visuals of the Instagram or your all social media. Where is the new perspective of the vision? That is lacking from the team, especially from the youth. I'll just close my conversation with a small incident which happened last week in my company. So we had a client, it was a circumcision staple which was brought into the market. So their target audience was urologist. So my digital marketing head, everybody was giving all the same strategy to find the target audience. All those data was in front of me. So my accountant, who came up with a different point of view, he was just giving a simple solution. He was telling, ma'am, ഗൂഗിളിൽ പോയിട്ട് എല്ലാ സ്പെസിഫിക് ലൊക്കേഷനിൽ യൂറോളജിസ്റ്റുകൾ ആരാണെന്ന് സെർച്ച് ചെയ്തിട്ട് നമുക്ക് അവരെ ഇതാക്കിയാൽ പോരെ. സോ every person in my apparently I was thinking in a different perspective. It is the entrepreneurial mindset has to be changed. We can't look into one person with one capability. As Vinay rightly said, that multidisciplinary education or that perspective helps. So every person, every employee is an asset. Only part is that our entrepreneurial mindset should be changed to look into them. How we can reskill, upskill them to cater to our requirements. And the creative part, of course, actually I feel so sad at some times, because usually when we do a 30-second or 1-minute ad, creative advertisement, visual ad, now it has been replaced by reels, 30-second. Anybody can do. An influencer can come and say in his own mannerisms, in his own slang of Trivandrum or Kannur slang, he creates a visual ad. We are done. And client is okay with that. Client doesn't want to spend that much. I really, as Vimal rightly said, it's scary that industry, how that visual creative or that content, authentic creativity is going to be affected. So that's my intro part, sir. Thank you.
Okay, now that we had the introductory remarks, we can go for some specific questions. So again, I'm not following an order in which, so I know that Taufik is urging to reply with the manufacturing, because most of the time when we look at it is the work for India and all, it is always the factory and the workers, and when you look at ILO reports, all those things, they talk about the manufacturing job, because mostly maybe because the drudgery in agriculture, urbanization, all has moved people to this. These are the economic focus, the forces. So that's why I said that McKinsey's use of the word non-farm jobs, right? So agriculture is essential, but people's aspiration and urbanization, migration, all works. So I think you can answer that. Along with that, I will just add on some things. So, what are the potential benefits in incorporating this technologies into the workplace, which you were saying that you are attempting, and what do you see as the obstacles which is not allowing this IR 4.0, right? Both from your perspective or the technology perspective.
First of all, when I listen to the other panelists, then the world becomes a scary place. On a manufacturing perspective, I think we are positioned well as a country to cater to more needs. So in that sense, we are always optimistic and positive. Your earlier question, you said manufacturing is not looked as a sector because of the sort of remuneration probably people get. I wanted to answer that as well.
Even if it moves into the digital manufacturing.
Right. But first, companies also need to change their strategy from a shareholder perspective or shareholder welfare perspective to a stakeholder welfare perspective. We need to do more for our employees so that they are getting more. So I think primarily a lot of companies, a lot of enterprises are still not looking at that model. So only when you change that model, change that narrative, will people be interested to come into the industry, and we can do more for the employees. So that was the first point I really wanted to address. And it's a very important point that shareholders is not the only priority, but stakeholders, that is your employees, indirect, direct, your suppliers, all of it, right? The second point that you asked me was regarding automation, the difficulty in automating in a manufacturing sector. So yeah, so we've been a company that is always looking at innovative sort of tools to bring into the sort of industry. So always when we've brought in new technology, the initial barrier to implement it is always difficult, because you need to convince labor to that it is going to be a more productive way sort of at getting output. But the first fear is always, is my job going to be lost? So it is always important to understand, or to make them understand, that they will be reskilled to do other jobs, because we as a company are moving forward. So that is how the approach needs to be taken. So always companies are looking to scale up. So that's the strategy in which, when we try to implement technology, newer technology, that we try to convince the labor force this is what's going to happen. So always that initial barrier is there, but the adoption or the change mindset happens over a period of time. Now, the problem is now to get a ready workforce to use that technology is not readily always available in the market. So that is where we need to partner with industries, partner with polytechnics, partner with universities to make sure that needs of the companies or the enterprises, as well as the newer technologies that is coming into the market, that gap is being bridged by a skills program or something like that. So that is where we go to a lot of private institutions. We worked with IIM also in the past to do this sort of work. So in terms of that, technology adoption is, there is an initial barrier, but there is definitely acceptance within the workforce that India is a lesser productive sort of country. So in terms of that, workforce is slowly migrating to those sort of philosophies. So Industry 4.0, digitization, those sort of things are slowly coming into place whereby we are able to improve the productivity. But it is still, a slow process. So in terms of the panelists, they're always talking about AI. The finance guys never like the manufacturing sector because it's a very
25% is still in manufacturing, at least.
Yeah.
Data shows, and it is shrinking, but that is what
it is shrinking. That's what the earliest statistic also that I said.
Yeah, so a lot of data is also available now to see that whether the number of companies are shrinking or the number of companies employing, more than 100 employees, that percentage. There's a lot of skewed.
There is a consolidation that is happening. So a lot of the smaller MSMEs are, getting. That is shrinking, and the larger companies are becoming larger, which is also sad. So the key to a very robust sort of economy is having a very robust MSME sort of system, which is highly prevalent in China, but that is slowly decreasing in India. So that needs to be still move forward to kind of create an economy which sustains. There is a sort of ancillary units that come around the companies to make sure that goes on well.
Again, the small sectors which are working, whether like he said about the future of manufacturing. So the small sectors should we concentrate more on the service sector only, small sectors only, because this digital platforms or the technologies are helping in terms of the global network much easier. So future, maybe we might have a gravitation more towards this compared to China in that value chain. But I wanted to bring in this Kailash into this perspective when he said about patience and investing in the employees. But today's employees do not commit themselves, right? Commitment to an organization, and we are re-looking at what is this loyalty aspect. So how do you see that for the future of this? Because we always learned in terms of loyalty, sticking on with a single company, and today even loyalty is being questioned.
So we don't really look at the relationship in terms of loyalty. I think it might even have a feudal element to it if you expect unwavering loyalty from employees. For us, it's mutual respect. If an organization respects their employees, the likelihood of the employees giving back that respect from a purely ethical standpoint is higher. So that's how we look at it. And once you start looking at it that way, you as an organization change, evolve your policies, your decisions, everything change to evolve to just accrue mutual respect. So to answer your question, the keyword is today. And I probably if you look at the technology industry over the last 5 years, this has become a trend. There are so-called unicorns that pop up, organizations that poach employees. Even that word is a little problematic, but it's used heavily. And people who jump from organization to organization chasing incentives and outsized rewards. But I think that was short-lived. If you look at the last 12 months, if you look at the data of capital, especially foreign capital that has come into the technology industry here, that's almost dried up. I think 90% of venture capital funding has just stopped. And what really enabled financial, technology, fintech, etc., organizations to do this, to incentivize people to not really have patience, was excess capital. But that would have been a bubble. That was a bubble that seems to have already popped. In India, apparently there are 100 plus so-called unicorns, organizations who are valued at more than $1 billion market cap, notional valuation. But if you look at the number of organizations in this list that are sustainable and that are profitable, who have a long-term vision, that's going to be a single-digit number. And that's very indicative of these trends, which are just cycles. So I think people, organizations, and people who seek employment will all get a really hard reality check. And it's already started happening the way we see it, where you'll just have to go back to first principles of, ancient concepts like patience, commitment, mutual respect, etc. So I think it's a bubble. I'm speaking of our industry, technology and finance and whatnot. It's a bubble, and it's already has started popping.
It is not a universal thing. Fintech companies are doing much better compared to certain other sectors, right?
Not necessarily. So many of the unicorns, again, are fintech companies, and if you look at sustainability and profitability, unfortunately, most of them are not. That's why I emphasized in the beginning that chasing outsized rewards, it's a driving force for many people, especially entrepreneurs, but you still have to be realistic. At the end of the day, if 1 million companies are formed, 1 million startups are formed, less than 1% will truly succeed, and even a shorter person will truly thrive. And that's just historical, humongous amounts of data, the percentage of large winners. So if you really look at statistics to understand the potential for victory, one has to be grounded. You have to really perhaps slow it down to even have better odds at becoming big. So the fintech industry as a whole has really suffered as the bubble has popped. It was never sustainable, and this crosses all sectors, not just fintech, technology, organizations in general.
Education sectors.
Oh yes, we all know.
Yeah, so we all know. I don't want to name the brands on this. So this brings us an interesting thing that it's a familiar story that only 1% this. So Vinay, from an investor's point of view, looking at the future and this innovations which you cannot predict. So do you move away from all this? Because typically investors look at scaling up of the, one of the major things is the scale, excellent idea, but whether I'll be able to scale up, whether it will, but we always have this generation of employment also, okay, the social entrepreneurship, all those angles come. So still are there these social elements when you are, or is it only a bottom line?
So if you look at the entrepreneurial boom that has happened in the last 50 odd years across the world, one of the key factors, of course, technology played a huge part, but the core reason why technology played such a huge part is also because technology makes businesses scalable. And the biggest driving force to a great extent was venture capital for this whole growth. If you look at top companies around the world, they were all venture funded. Most of them were venture funded. So, but venture capital funding is possible only in scalable startups. Because if you're a founder looking at a traditional, conventional business where you're going to just get dividends tomorrow, you can never put in 100% or 95% of the capital required for the business and take a 5 or 10% stake. That would be going back to traditional businesses where you put in 90% of the capital, you probably get 90% of the equity, and then over a period of time, your partner buys back your equity from profits, that his profit share and all that. That's traditional business structures, business partnership structures. Venture capital works very differently. So for an idea, if the idea and the founders are good, you put in 90 or 100% of the money required by the company at that point, and you take 5 to 10% equity, probably 15% equity. Because it's a long journey. And why is this possible? It's because of scalability. It is only because the startup can continue to scale. The moment there is a repeatable, scalable model identified, a venture capitalist comes in so that you can go ahead and repeat this model and scale it. It is such scaled startups that has caused this huge wealth creation that has happened across the world in the last 40, 50 years. So scalability is something that we should desire more and more. And scalability is important for venture capital funding to come in to boost entrepreneurs to do their job, you know.
So the scalability is more associated with the consumers. So here, in terms of employees or the number of jobs which these startups, does it also influence the kind of investments?
In fact, what I was trying to say is the number of jobs is a function of how much the startup can grow. And that growth is to a great extent fueled by venture capital funds. And those venture capital funds can come in only if it continues to grow. You need hyper growth. Only then, so in fact, we speak about this to traditional investors very often because we work with angel investors in tier 2, tier 3 markets as well. And they all expect when they give 90% of the capital required by a company, I need at least 51%. Otherwise, I won't be able to invest. So that's what happens in the lesser developed ecosystems. So, but what they need to realize is the valuation, of course, the valuation continues growing. If you do take more than 10% in the first round, you're essentially screwing up the chances of the company to continue scaling. And it is when it continues to scale that jobs are created. If you look at all the jobs that are created across the world in the last 40, 50 years, a big chunk of them, I wouldn't know the exact statistics, would be from venture-funded companies. So scalability is extremely important for entrepreneurship to grow, for job creation to happen.
So that will be an outcome of this. So job creation will be okay. Right. So what I thought is that we will hear from one more speaker, and then open it because I'm sure that some questions will be there from the participants also. Okay, so I just wanted to go to Dina in terms of this. Somebody mentioned about this working pattern of this 9 to 5. Whether there is a future for this work-life balance and this nomadic worker, right? I can sit and work from anywhere. This thing. So, how do you see it? This is going to enhance more work, or companies will try to segregate two kind of workers? Like the future will be about 9 to 5 worker and this. How do you see that?
So it's very interesting to see the different perspectives in terms of how do we predict future, right? And this 9 to 5 or how the future of work is going to be, and to what Kailash was mentioning about the loyalties and how it is going to be, and to Vinay's point of multidisciplinary. So what I believe is going forward, there are going to be different strata of the ways in which the work happens is going to differ, and that's where to the other side of, the panelists and from Smita to Vimal, Shafiq, or of you were mentioning about how each of the industry sector and the way in which we are going to see work happening. And that's where, whether it's going to be 9 to 5, there would still be, I would say that whether it is startup, and even when we look up at the startups, right? Why did startups come? There have always been new businesses coming. Why do you call somebody a startup, right? So that is mainly because if there is, and that's exactly where, for example, the venture funding is happening, because that's where something completely different from the way things have been functioning when there is disruption, innovation, and that requires a specific set of support, specific way of working. That's where you call it as a startup. And this is where, fortunately or unfortunately, when the venture capital and the money flew in as well, not so much has been looked at the job creation or the way in which it is rendered and built, but there has been like two different ways in which a goal has been defined. But going forward also, we'll see the same way. I mean, whether companies, the way in which we are going to transform, particularly in the next 10 years, is going to be a time of confusion and chaos. We would be inventing, reinventing. When you look at the COVID time and the pandemic time, when everyone went back into work from home, companies didn't know, including us, didn't know how to tackle this, how to get work from people. And that's where I believe, as a startup, I can tell you in the stages there were two sets we were struggling with. One, the innovative products which we were within the company itself that was going on. We were struggling with people not being there for a 9 to 5 or having a face-to-face conversation. That's where interdepartmental collaboration. These are some of the things that any stage technology cannot take off, is what I feel, because that's the whole human aspect which we were listening about from the panelists. An amazing way in which the perspective itself, and that's where the human aspect will not go off, and that's where still, whether it is a 9 to 5 or the timing is all about how much time you have overlap in terms of interacting with other people or other stakeholders with whom you have to come together to solve a problem. So in new companies, there would be people who are going to collaborate, whether it's for a short-term, long-term gig or otherwise. People who are good, there'll be a set of people who are going to work towards a common goal, and that might most likely require, that core team most likely would require a set time where they're going to collaborate. And they would also be certain, once you have set patterns and set systems, processes, how things are going to interact, would be certain set which would require anywhere you can work from anytime, but the goal is very fixed. Like what you have to give as an output is fixed. That need not necessarily be a 9 to 5 kind of job. And then you would still have, the people who are going to get the entire human element around it in terms of how cohesive that ecosystem is going to be. So I believe that, this brings me back to the book which I love the most, wherein, you have different planets, the Happy Prince, where you go and look at the different planets as such. So this is where you will have smaller, specific group of individuals, group of people who work towards tiny problems, or rather, big problems which are being solved in tiny goal-oriented fashion, and collaborating with multiple ecosystems. And that's exactly the reason why even today in companies, if you see that none of the employees are not coming, or rather the people who want to work also doesn't look at it as, there are people, especially from the younger generation, who just want to work for 6 months, 8 months and take a break, do whatever they love, feel like doing, and then come back and work again. But because of the skill, they reskill, they upskill. And when they come back, we also find it that during that point in time, it is really good to have a certain set of people. But can a company function with all of them being like that? No. There is still that core people who still solve for the problem. So I believe it's going to be a combination going forward. So 9 to 5 will still exist, whether it is 9 to 5, whether it's 10 to 5, or whether you choose to do it from a 12 to 4. Maybe, to Vimal's point also, we might become so efficient that what we used to do in 8 hours just gets done in 10 minutes, for example. That means you just have to collaborate for 3 hours instead of the 8-hour workday that we are seeing. So we'll see a combination of all of these. But one thing I don't believe is that it will ever go away completely, because whatever automation, whichever AR, VR, anything that we talk about, multiple universes we can create, that soft thing of human element will not go off, and which is the reason why the collaborating, which is where the decision which is not driven only by the artificial intelligence, because somebody has to train, somebody has to think ahead, somebody has to make those critical decisions, and that part is going to be the driver for the core, and that will still remain.
Why I ask specifically is that we do teach executive students, so those who are working, and last whole year, one of the favorite things which I used to ask in the class is that how many of you want to go back to office and work, and 90% of them say that, and some of them say their spouses also don't, and they all get memos also, like TCS and all sends 3 or 4 memos that, but still people don't. But on the other hand, they do complain that 24 hours कुछ ना कुछ काम करते रहते हैं this thing, but they are not ready to drive down on this. There are instances where people have started complaining about, in smaller cities also traffic, driving 15 minutes, 20 minutes also is a big issue which is being held. So I will come back to you to the thing. I thought that now we have thrown out a lot of ideas to the audience. So now it is open floor. So please feel free, like I said earlier, in whatever language you want to ask questions. So the questions can be specific to the panelists, or you can have general questions also. One of them will try and address that. Okay. So the floor is now open. Yeah, there is.
Hi, it's pretty loud. Hey, my name is Karthik. I'm part of Amazon. I lead payments in Amazon as well. So Tawfiq actually raised a very interesting point around moving from the model of shareholder to stakeholder, right? So I think the World Economic Forum is also trying to sort of push for stakeholder capitalism, right? So there's this entire concept of ESG, which is environment, social, and governance, right? Which is being pushed heavily from top down, right? Where companies are having to become more conscious in terms of their investments. And even companies, for them to raise capital, they need to have, they need to bear the image of being a more greener company, right? So otherwise, typically companies are starved. So a lot of the AMCs are now enforcing a higher ESG score for them to even acquire capital. But I have a slight, debate that I'm having. So typically, if you look at manufacturing sectors, which are a lot more brown in nature when it comes to emissions, where, let's say, you look at the finance industry, right, where the emissions or things of that sort could be classified more as green. So are they at a disadvantage, when you look at manufacturing sector, which is, again, typically more capital intensive, to acquire capital from these big investment firms?
So one, the point that you said, the manufacturing sector is more brown and not being green. Today there is a net carbon zero target for most of the companies that we supply to. And so we have scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So we are a component supplier, so which we make 60% of the product in most cases, and sometimes 100% of the product. As a scope 3 supplier, we have to have a net carbon zero target by 2030 or 2045, because those companies have already put out targets. So in terms of manufacturing, for us, the main sort of carbon footprint that comes is with power. So primarily, we have to go to a more sort of renewable sort of source of power. So in Kerala, primarily most 40 to 50% of the power that's generated from Kerala comes from the hydropower, which gives us a sort of competitive advantage. And in Tamil Nadu, in one of the manufacturing sites, 50% of our power comes from wind. So as a company, we have to go to a 100% sort of model whereby we change that. So that aspect of it also is being tackled. Secondly, if you look at an investment sort of model in the manufacturing sector, we are very capital heavy. We are very asset heavy. I don't think today, when you look at it and when you look at the workforce, we are a very attractive sort of model, sort of for an investor point of view. In fact, I've been debating this internally within the family also for a long period of time. But when you look at people, when we look at industry sort of experts, people who have done it before, there is sort of a negative sort of, perspective to that. But definitely, if it's a company that is always, the problem is scale in manufacturing. So you're not able to scale as easy as sort of the other sort of sectors. So how can you transition your company from a small sort of model to a highly scalable model is what we need to work toward. And that is where what I primarily, that upskilling is really, whereby the manufacturing sector, there is still a huge gap. So, it's a sort of direct participation between government and enterprises on how that can be done. So that's a sort of collaborative sort of effort that we need to take. And then maybe, there will be a lot more sort of companies in this sort of sector, which would be more and more sort of accepting or capable of getting sort of funding in this sort of sector. But we need more people like you to come into the industry so that, it's a lot more optimistic. So yeah. So I hope I answered your question.
Hello. Actually, I'm running a green energy company, but I have some disagreement with the manufacturing industry when thinking about all green power. Actually, the
wrong sentiment. You have some sentiment, as in?
yeah. Actually, the problem is when we think about the pollution and carbon footprint in the manufacturing industry, it is mainly from the cement industry, steel industry, energy industry. But in India, almost all, a major part of the population is now being affordable for a house, transportation facilities. If we are compelling the manufacturing sector to go green in a very short span of time, that will increase the cost and that will delay the development of the unprivileged populations of the country. Even when I am doing business in renewable energy, even when I am promoting it, even when I am producing new products and technologies in it, I cannot support initiatives to immediately make the manufacturing industry green.
Yeah, so primarily when you look at it, so we're an export-oriented company. So when you talk about policies like going neutral or carbon neutral, there is discussion that in a 3-year, 4-year span, there'll be carbon tax that will be put on companies. So completely understand your point whereby you say certain companies of different scale cannot do it immediately. So that is definitely there. I think if you really look at it, you have to look at the purpose of your business. So in terms of the purpose of your business, what is the policies that you're driving towards? So finally, we also have sort of commitment to society's commitment to the world at large. So thereby, if you're driving your business with your policies in place, how do those two come together? So it can be a near sort of 1-year plan or a 2-year plan, but also it could be a longer term plan. So there is no 100% right and wrong here, but as long as you're driving your company towards that sort of target, I think you are doing better. So I think that also you need to make, your sort of company policies towards that very, very clear. So even if you're a company, you say 2030 or 2045 is when you're driving towards that. Even our country, 2075 is our target to be net carbon zero. So it doesn't have to be immediate, but on a long-term plan, you definitely need to work towards that. So that would be my sort of answer to that.
And one more point
Can I come back, because I will also add on to that part. Yeah, who had raised hand? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a student. I'm an engineering student from Palakkad. My place is called Calicut itself. Currently, I'm working with a team of scientists who is working for UL Space Club, which is founded by former ISRO director Sri K. Kutti. So my question is connected to education sector as a student. So all the panelists were talking about mentioning about the education sector and the connection between these topics. So my question is like, all over the world there has been a drastic change for students and the initiatives. As our Vimal Govind sir is also started his venture as when he was a student, I think. So in US and other countries, all the developed countries, students itself starting ventures and they are getting into good initiatives. But in some corner of the world like our places, it's not that much happening. Only few are arising with great ideas and into entrepreneurship and other jobs. Recently, one thing I have to mention is a 14-year-old boy has got placed to SpaceX in US. So these kind of things, this kind of opportunity for students and this kind of platform for entrepreneurship for students and emerging entrepreneurs is not happening in our ecosystem. So what will be the role of education sector in improvising this kind of case?
So I think Vimal would be the best person, being a successful, you are from the engineering college and you started this venture during that. No? So he just wants to know that whether this will be a big feeder for the startup ecosystem. He doesn't seem to have a very optimistic view, but you have already crossed that. So,
so I think the biggest issue in our ecosystem that I personally felt, even I does not had that intention of creating a company till my college. The word startup, I think I heard from college, and that is also thanks to Kerala Startup Mission. Because they introduced the concepts called IDC. And that is the first thing which came to me with the word of startup and entrepreneurship and things like that. So, but what was the helping kind of thing which helped me to create a venture is because I choose engineering because of passion. I studied, technical school from 8th standard, and I know what engineering can do, and I had that passion from childhood itself towards engineering, and that aspect of doing something with engineering is actually drived me with the support of IDC and Kerala Startup Mission and all into taking the risk of forming a company. And then I also thought the level of passion that I had in engineering, I does not find also opportunity to work. Like the advanced robotics and AI is not very common in our place. So I also felt this passion and the opportunity that if I can create, I can also give this to a lot of people which is already looking for getting into this space. So I feel there is two levels to this. One is to government and ecosystem for promoting entrepreneurship and startup in the ecosystem, and that is, I think, already India and Kerala as a state is doing. Second part comes to individuals. While they choose engineering as a profession or any type of different type of profession, when they should be really clear, they want to go the maximum in this domain by taking maximum risk. So if that passion comes into this education system from individual side, definitely I believe they will take the risk of entrepreneurship and creating a startup and things like that. So these two mindset, I feel, will be cater more startups in our country.
So we used to discuss this in the Startup Mission meetings. So I used to associate with the earlier director. So one of the things is that people took up startups and they work for 2 years and then again they leave the state. Okay, because investors are not, their investors are sitting in Bangalore or Gurgaon. Secondly, the overall ecosystem also, to discuss and talk also is very less. So that is a trend, unfortunately, which is seen in our info parks or techno parks also. People join for 1 or 2 years, then they look for the job in Gurgaon and this one. So that again brings back to the, the salary factor or the kind of exciting jobs whether we are able to provide in our cyber parks. Exciting jobs or that passion driven. No? But you are saying about, people who will not look at job per se, but they will exclusively go for entrepreneurship. But now the scene is not that. Maybe, is it that your experience also?
So we are honestly a little wary about investing in students who are still in college, primarily because when that final day comes, when there are placements, you invest your money, students still have a backup option. If they are not confident on that day when placements come, their family pretty much 90% of the time will not be confident. And unless they put their foot down and stick on, we lose our money. So, yeah, and the only reason we fund startups students during college is because of the future potential, right? Because we don't expect these students to be able to do substantially, as in entrepreneurship is a 100% full-time job. So we expect them to take off primarily after the course, and we can support the process until then. But if the student does not stay on track, then investors lose money. And I don't invest alone, I invest with a group of other investors. So I generally am wary to take up the responsibility for students as well. So we generally, honestly, are a little wary.
Appreciate your honesty in that field. Yeah, you had... yes, next.
Hi everyone. I am Sanil. I am a practicing chartered accountant. So finance is my domain. Just not really a macroeconomic expert and all, but just listening to the discussion, I thought, no, you're talking about Industry 4.0, innovation, 21st century skills. You're basically looking at a transformation. Now, transformation, when you talk about transformation, transformation is transformation only when your own past looks like somebody else's past. So, when you're looking at something like Deena ma'am was discussing about having 2 employees at a time, having 3 employees at a time. Now, you'll have a situation where, as a finance person, maybe 20 years down the line, I'll be looking at a situation where I should not be just having finance as my domain, I should be also having another competence at the same time. So, earlier when there was, there was a time, maybe 15, 20 years back, when people were specializing in things, people were getting specialization in certain domains, and they could hire people for other menial tasks. Now I think time has come now that you now need to know everything by, you need to have multiple competencies, multidisciplinary sort of thing. So my question to, one is to Deena ma'am, is looking at the current position in the industry, how fast could you will see a position where people will be using AI-based ERPs? Now we are talking about AI tools which are all sort of offline, but where you will find ERPs now getting built, having AI capabilities. If you look at the MSMEs, which are the large chunk of the business population here, you don't really see AIs being built into your Tally or even into SAP. How fast and how rapid could that be? Because if it is coming in 2 or 3 years down the line, looking at how fast GPT has changed all the narrative, now this could happen in 2 or 3 years down the line. So that could entirely change the future of work. When you're looking at the MSMEs, which are our clientele, when you're looking at MSMEs, so how fast do you really think, looking at the ERPs, the business decisions, how fast it could happen in the ERP space? Thanks.
Sanal, great question. So if you look at it, we should also ask about the reason why it should come. And it is already happening. If you look at the finance space itself, right? How rapidly in the last 5 years, if you take, last year has been the most advanced compared to the last 4 years, right? So if you look at earlier, if we were talking about generation gap and disruptions and all in 10 years, 5 years, kind of now even a year and a 2 year, we are getting into that. So which is where I cannot predict the exact timeline, but one thing I can tell you is, earlier, if you were to look at it, finance and the matters related to that, when it comes to commerce, everything, that's where finance is most important, right? You have to take decisions based on data and patterns. And it was not the lack of intelligence. You're a practicing chartered accountant. It's not the lack of intelligence or lack of people to do it or a training to do it which was holding us back, but it was the structured data, the way in which it could have come, right? So which is where last decade, if you saw, even in finance and the ERPs and everything, the structuring of the data happened in a beautiful way. And today, if you look at it, right from open banking to the infrastructure we are creating, the multiple stacks, it is all about how data can be, and even the account aggregator, the AA framework, all of the consent mechanism based data committing mechanism. So this is where the groundwork has been done for structured data to be committed to where it has to be looked at. And now comes the decision making, and that's where AI is going to actually, get in the real sense. And if you look at the AI part also, it has been more than any other time that we have seen, this is becoming like literally taking over various functions, right? And now when we are talking about maybe, GPT, mainly because of the fact that, the whole generative part, we have seen the power of it coming now. And now we are seeing already, as we are discussing about it, we are seeing the LLM and talk about it. There are so many new things which are coming up. So all put together, if you were to look at it, how the intelligence and the decision making can now computational, from a power of computation, can go in with overlaying on all the different data, which again is not humanly possible, and then look at what a decision would have been taken at that point in time. And today, if you look at it, that is coming in multiple areas. So when we are looking at what we have built also, so if there are like multiple systems to which this operating system interacts, right, from your banking infrastructure to your already existing accounting or any other ERPs which you can interact, and then you take the data, and there is, you know, the entire AI and the ML based scoring mechanisms and everything when it comes to right from lending to at what point you know, predictive mechanism in terms of at what point you have to take money. All of those are driven now by data, because it can again tell you based on the AI ML kind of algorithms at what point in time your interaction with your vendors or your receivables, at what point in time you could actually go into predictive models in terms of where you could actually go into a shortage or a surplus, for example, and then it goes to where it can be utilized. So if you look at all these possibilities, while there are like specific areas double click which is happening, it's just a matter of like it's very quickly coming in terms of the entire ERP or the functions related to finance, where both like the modern technologies, I wouldn't say AI alone, but all the kind of, you know, modern technologies in the computing is going to take away.
So in that point, primarily, I think ma'am spoke primarily on the finance side. But since you brought up the point on SAP and Tally, we are an Oracle-based company. We are migrating to SAP, and it's terrible. Because the system is so robust, not so robust, it's so rigid that we are not able to really use the functions that we really like to do. So I do understand restocking, replenishment, all these things can come into play, but the system is so rigid. And if you look at it on businesses or manufacturing sector, to just put a positive spin on things, is that most of these sectors are very customized. So it is very, the requirement on these software platforms would be to be more sort of flexible, which this does not give. And the manufacturing sector thrives on flexibility, and these guys don't do that at all.
Sometimes it's very easy to wonder, it's so easy to comprehend, but why are these guys not doing it?
Yes. So in terms of that, that part of it will still remain. So even companies, now our company, we are second guessing ourselves, should we do the migration or not? Because the change management is so hard, and you have like 1,500 employees that you really need to do this change management to. And there are no sort of implementation partners who know how to do this at all. So there is a business opportunity there as well. But to put a positive spin on things, I think, you know, it's not so easy, not so cut and dry, I feel, from my perspective.
It was scary that people thought they will lose their job if ERP. So, but now it has moved from that. Yeah, we will, Amal, can you help him with that? Yeah.
Thank you for the wonderful opportunity. Give me for the wonderful opportunity. I ask you a question. How could prevent the terrorist activities to using robotics, by using robotics? ഞാനത് പറയാൻ കാരണം there is no certain definitions of 21st century skills, but they are scales of survive and thrive into 21st century skills എന്നാണ് ഡെഫിനിഷൻ വരുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ആർട്ടിഫിഷ്യൽ ഇൻ്റലിജൻസിൻ്റെ പറ്റിയിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെ ബേജാറാവുന്ന കാലമാണ്, പേടിക്കുന്ന കാലമാണ്. അപ്പം ഈ ഒരു പ്രവർത്തനത്തെ നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ഒരു മാധ്യമ പ്രവർത്തക ഇവിടെ ഇരിക്കണോണ്ടാണ് ഇങ്ങനെ ചോദിക്കണത്. ഒരുപാട് ടെററിസ്റ്റ് ആക്ടിവിറ്റീസ് ഇതിൻ്റെ പുറകിൽ, അതായത് റോബോട്ടിക്സിനെ യൂസ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് നടത്തുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഇതിനെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് പ്രിവെൻറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക? എത്തിക്കൽ ഹാക്കിങ് വെച്ചിട്ടോ മറ്റെന്തെങ്കിലും മാർഗങ്ങൾ വെച്ചിട്ടോ പ്രിവെൻറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമോ? കാരണം 21st സെഞ്ച്വറി നമുക്ക് ഒരുപാട് അവസരങ്ങൾ തരുമ്പോഴും നമ്മൾ ചില ആളുകൾ ഭയക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പോൾ ഉദാഹരണമായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ജപ്പാനിൽ 9 ശാസ്ത്രജ്ഞന്മാർ, 9 സയൻറ്റിസ്റ്റിനെ റോബോട്ടിക്സ് ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ട് കൊന്ന ചരിത്രമുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഇതിനെങ്ങനെയാണ് എത്തിക്കൽ ഹാക്കിങ്ങോ മറ്റെന്തെങ്കിലും മാർഗങ്ങൾ വെച്ചിട്ടോ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമോ, പ്രിവെൻറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമോ? ഹൗ കുഡ് പ്രിവെൻറ്റ് ഇറ്റ്?
So I will take it to Kailash in terms of the cyber security aspects involved. So, but he was trying to see from the the bad side of the negative side of the robotics also, or all these AI tools on the hands of the ethical aspects. Actually, I was planning to ask manufacturing guys also on the ethical concerns this one, but you can throw some light on the cyber security aspects like data availability of technology, etc.
I think to directly answer his question, it's a very difficult problem. Humans have always weaponized any possible technology ever. Something as simple as a knife or a spoon has been consistently weaponized through through history. So you can imagine how more and more sophisticated technologies would be weaponized by people who are hell-bent on weaponizing. Now, is there a technical means of preventing certain technologies from being weaponized? Unfortunately, not really. We can use nuclear as an example where regulation has worked. It has been nuclear energy is so heavily regulated that nobody can really use it or touch it. Even for industrial uses, it's extremely well regulated. But you look at another technology like guns. In a country like US, that's also highly unregulated, widely available. So can regulations prevent robotics and artificial intelligence technologies from being weaponized? It's very difficult because of the widespread distributed nature of innovation. AI technologies are not being built by 1 or 2 or 3 companies. It's being built by teenagers sitting in their bedrooms who are experimenting. So when you have technologies that are so widespread, it's software, how do you effectively regulate them away from weaponization? It's very difficult. There will be attempts. It's very difficult. Is there a silver bullet, magical technology solution that will prevent it? Absolutely no.
പക്ഷെ ആ ഒരു സംഭവം നടക്കുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് എപ്പോഴാണ് പ്രഡിക്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഒരു ഡിഫൻസ് വരുമ്പോൾ, ഒരു ആക്രമണം വരുമ്പോൾ എപ്പോഴാണ് എന്താ സംഭവിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് പ്രഡിക്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അപ്പോൾ ഈ സാധനം യൂസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് അതായത് ഈ ഓരോ പ്രോഗ്രാമാണല്ലോ റോബോട്ടിക്സ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞത്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാം എങ്ങനെയാണ് സഡനായിട്ട് ബ്രേക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക?
പറ്റില്ല, you can't.
Okay, thank you.
So people can build their own software, build their own hardware.
So it is more of a self-regulation.
Yeah.
At least now, institutionalize the regulations on that.
Thank you.
Actually, I want to add a couple of points to this. As you likely know, there is a lot of advancement happened in robotics and AI nowadays. Drones are a weaponizing thing in the industry. Specifically in Ukraine Russian war, the value of drones company drastically up because any type, even it does not have any quality of hitting a target itself, people are buying and using it for hitting with the bombs and all in the warfare. At the similar ways, now we have anti-drone technologies also, which can prevent drones from hitting targets or coming to places and all. So we can always build technologies like that, and even putting a wild thoughts into safety of robotic system. Ipo nammal airport povumbo we will look for metal detectors. Similarly, we can also look for the program architecture of every robotic device, whether it is harmful or not harmful. This can be easily created when we can plug into the system and understand the architecture behind the program. So basic fundamental laws, robotics in first padikkunna samayathu we'll talk about the fundamental laws of robotics, where it should not harm a human being and all. But it's not been applied and used in robotics in a very widespread way. But if you ask, there is a 100% fail switch, there will not be a 100% fail switch. But we can always create companies on and technology that make us safe from this kind of drones as well as robotic devices in multiple levels.
Secondly, it's not only about the robotics, but the kind of new technologies and pacemakers and all, which is in the network, and the data can be stolen and all. That's why the cybersecurity also is an important aspect in IR 4.0. Somebody had raised, shall I go there and then?
Myself, Sharan, works in Fortune IAS Academy, Trivandrum. So first of all, so I want to raise an opinion rather than a question. Currently, the unemployment as well as underemployment is on rising. So we are just focusing on service sector as well as manufacturing sector, and I think just kind of ignoring agriculture sector. So why don't we consider agriculture sector as a career option by modernizing agriculture, by integrating the artificial intelligence like precision farming, etc. And we can encourage people to choose agriculture as a career option. For example, a person called P.S. Sujit, he's from Alapura, and he is very famous for a variety farmer in YouTube. And he is making huge profit out of agriculture by using modern technologies. Okay, my question is to Mr. Vinay. Why don't people like VC venture capitalists don't investing in modern agriculture startups?
Agri-tech is something we actively invest in. In fact, even in the last 1 year, we've invested in agri-tech startups. But there is always especially in Kerala, remember I spoke about scalability earlier. So agriculture is not scalable in Kerala. You identify a repeatable, scalable model, do it for 10 acres, it's okay. Do it for 15, it's okay. Go to the 16th acre. As the law stands today, the government takes it off because it's excess land. Unless you do it in 4 or 5 identified crops, which are plantation crops. Similar is the case across different states in the country. So, so regulation is a big problem, but agri-tech is something that we are constantly trying to reinvent and invest in. So we do actively invest in agri-tech companies. The regulatory concerns though exist.
So it's not an Indian problem as such, but it is a universal things. And that is why we discussed in terms of the sectors this. And currently, at least in India, with this Make in India program, skills, the orientation has been to capture the manufacturing sector, and the future is in terms of digital manufacturing. So so in no way the other aspect where a large chunk of the population is doing that. So that's why I said that how much employment is it able to generate, how many families it can, the future. So here the scope of scaling up is there. In the service sector already it is there. It is not that capital intensive, but in the manufacturing, unfortunately, because of the digital manufacturing, the capital intensity is there. So that is where it's not about the thing, and the aspiration of the people also is more towards the non-farm jobs. In fact, manufacturing to services even. So we are in that kind of a stage. But obviously the same. So 3 or more hands are there. If time permits, we will take. Yeah.
Hello. Hi, I am Hemant. I am a practicing chartered accountant. I have a mindset to express because this AI and the blockchain and the cloud computing, etc., will going to throw a paradigm shift in the field of accounting and the taxation, etc. Because the groundworks, for example, data entries, the checkings and other things, it will going to change. So I just need an opinion from the Dina ma'am whether my mindset is correct or not. Because just 2 decades back the computer has came, so at that time lot of apprehensions were there. A lot of persons will lose their work and other things will happen, so many things will happen. But now the human beings are just gel with the computer, and everybody have a computer in their own home, and they are making profits and making revenues with the help of the computer and the technology nowadays. Say for example a 5-year-old child or a 90-year-old lady are also making profit from YouTube or using the technologies. So just like that, what I feel is over a period of time it will get gel with the human beings. Now for example, for a period of time few persons will lose their job in the field of accounting or taxation, but after some time the education system will change. It will adapt with the technology that is available at that time. The new jobs will come up, the new persons will come up, so the education system will also change, so the jobs will also change. So it will gel with the the human being. So whatever AI or BC or the cloud computing has came, the new jobs or new things will come. So it can be used by it can be used by the human beings for their own purposes as well. So whether this mindset is correct or
yeah, what he's saying to say, technological determinism, like society will evolve with technology.
Which I completely agree with you, and that's where every time when we saw the changes, whenever we resisted as a profession, as a set of people, whenever we resisted, we have always seen we had some long period in terms of getting back on track. And that's exactly where we shouldn't see this as a threat, but we should start embracing, start actively thinking about what are the changes from the current mindset which is going to happen, or current way in which we render. For example, I'm also a chartered accountant, but I started my articleship on the days wherein the first week of articleship we were doing the calculator, the speed on the calculator, looking at manual ledgers were the norm. And then transitioned, even before the third year articleship I finished, we transitioned into computer-based financial statements. And today, as we see, the financial statements itself is like, we have seeing all of them automated, for example. Have jobs come down? It really hasn't. But the way in which we start, today's articleship never starts with a calculator. That doesn't mean that the whole skill set is gone. You don't have to even look at it. This is exactly where I feel fundamentally from the primary education onwards, plus what Vinay was mentioning about the societal approach of stability and the kind of job we should get, the job kind of, we should make the entire curriculum in such a manner that we are fine and perfectly fine with change. Ensure that change is a constant and they adapt to it. And the skill set in terms of making them fungible. Today, don't talk about physics, chemistry, biology are the only things you can take, or maybe if you want to go to commerce, these are the 3 subjects plus maybe a computer. Gone are those days. We will have skill sets in wherein you have keen interest in solving a problem, you have keen interest in doing something, please go ahead and do it. And that's where this is going to evolve. Let us accept the fact that world is going to look a lot different the way we look at it going forward, and that's where we should start with much higher and differentiated way. And one aspect to look at it also, why all of this technology is important. If you had 5 years back or 10 years back, we had say around 40 million businesses in India. Today you would be having say around 100 million businesses. If you keep on doing the same way, how many more people you would require to cater to them effectively? So it's more like, you can only cater with so many skill sets which are coming out to 20 million people, for example. How do I make it 5x? That can only happen with the coming in technological intervention. So that's why going forward, jobs will not go off, but the skill sets which you require, whether what you're acquiring and the mindset, that's where I would still go back to the mindset in the society, how we should train them. We shouldn't make them scared about it. So we should have more and more entrepreneurial mindset put in than the job mindset. The moment that happens, whatever comes in, we'll be in a position to take that. And be prepared for such kind of drastic changes also. But that doesn't mean that any of the job will go off or what you have to do. Maybe from the data entry, we start and graduating to, decision and giving them high expert opinion to the entire chain. We might start from just give the expert opinion, which means for more people you can give that. And less unnecessary work we'll be doing. That let some other mission do. It's fine. So that's the way I see it.
I actually want to add one point to this. Even before someone asked questions in chartered accounting, I feel chartered accounting is in very imminent threat to AI. AI can easily replace this specific sector. The reason, I'm being very frank, sorry for that, but why I need to say that is you can already see it, the benefit of it on the perspective of a company sides, which actually use chartered accountant. Processing of big data is much more easier in the cases of AI powered engines are actually doing it. And even in the perspective of government also, they also want to implement the policy in a very faceless manner. Yes, yeah. So not in ease of doing business also, even on not manipulating the data. If humans are more involved in the process, the manipulation there is a high chance of manipulation. But if automation is there in place, it's good for government also. So actually the major stakeholders are in the interest of introducing AI into this. So I feel chartered accounting is one of the job which is in imminent vicinity of threat of AI.
The finance jobs are.
Just to give both from this perspective and for the chartered accountants who are thinking maybe we'll be out of profession, just one more perspective is that this is where it's important to say what is the role of a chartered accountant. Of a chartered accountant, traditionally, though we have come down to the stage where companies cannot even put the data properly, cannot even, commit somewhere, and regulations are overwhelming, which is where we talk about the ease of business and things like that. The real chartered accountant job was to look at, whether it is being ethically done. There are various other aspects which you had to literally go audit and see. And second aspect was also from a finance deciphering perspective in terms of what decisions to take at what point, right? That will continue to remain. And that's exactly where we should utilize the power of entire computing to come till that level and cut out all the unnecessary stuff that we were doing so far and be prepared for that. That is exactly where the volumes only will go up and the complexities will only go up, and that's where we truly, each profession, each person which had to do from a human perspective what we had to add value, we will come down only to that relevant part. All the remaining can be taken by the machines, and that's exactly where we need to play at.
So before I take the question to Sumita, who has been recruiting a lot of people and even upskilling. So how do you see there is a lot of debate on the gender aspect, like women's participation. Is it going to increase with IR 4.0, or in the manufacturing sector and all? They say that in the shop floors and all now women can come with cobots. The robots will do the heavy jobs. So these were places where women were discriminated. So how do you see that, at least in the service sector, more participation is going to happen, or and there's flexible arrangements? So if you can throw on that.
Yes, flexible arrangement have definitely helped the women workforce to be part, especially in the service industry. But I don't think that Industry 4.0 will give a cutting edge benefit to the women entrepreneurs or the women employees. Only part is our mindset has to be changed. Otherwise, it doesn't mean any of the gender differences in Industry 4.0. But I would like to add to what you were mentioning, Dina was mentioning, regarding the computational mindset for entrepreneurs. Especially that part of the automation on the chartered accountant part, completely helpful, because we don't want to depend on the people and then get into the trouble, especially living in another city like Dubai, and they are in a very initial stage of this, introducing the taxation part and those things. There is always a roadblock when we go to the people. Instead, when the government itself is trying to bring up the automation process for the entrepreneurs who are completely, basically I don't have any interest to understand the finance part or the daily those VAT related things. I have to depend upon my accountant or my CFO, or again then that is all the perspectives are coming. But instead, when the government gives a portal with things which are done automated, then my work is done, my time is saved. In that sense, it helps. But on the job loss part, I'm not very sure about it.
Yeah.
General question.
Can I take this lady's question and then come to you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Anasuya Thorakat. So I am a recent graduate from English Language and Literature. So my question is to Mr. Vimal, which is concerning because I have a habit of, connecting it with philosophical theories because I'm an art student. You told about the fact that how AI is becoming a fear to the humanity because of the fact that, it can take up a lot of roles that humans did before. Now, the question is actually that, like Sigmund Freud, a psychoanalyst, he actually put forward this theory called the iceberg theory, where there is this conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. So there is a lot of irretrievable content in ourselves and in around the world, which even humans can are still finding out. Since AI and these robotics and computing systems are all ultimately made or based on the inputs of a human mind, don't you think that in this media age, the importance in what we don't know will actually be a favor for us in the time ahead, where we think that AIs can take away the works and jobs that we humans always did?
I'm not actually a psychology expert, but what I feel is what you said is right. I'm also feeling we should be more option in the conscious and our self-awareness aspect of our being, so that we can find more value in the future. So that's what I feel even right now. But the problem here now, initially when industrialization happened, when people shifted to mind, the aspect of mind, the intellect and different quality and different kind of things is well aware. So we are able to easily shift into that domain and create a value. But when I talk about consciousness, I'm not sure everybody is aware of this specific aspect of a being as a human being. And still we need more exploration need to happen in this self-awareness and consciousness, and the role of these levels in innovations and our day-to-day aspect and generating value for the future. So I feel the more unknown about ourselves will be in a favoring position at this point of time, since we have some place to look into and try to see. There is a hope at least. So in that aspect it is yes.
Can I add to it? The reason is because I can see that that has a challenge in the creative field. Because whatever the designers, visualizers or anybody or even the content creators, they are flooded with the data, they are flooded with the informations, they are flooded with the visuals. So whatever they generate, that they are depending more on that visuals, not their authentic one, or they are not even ready to look into their own mind and create an original perspective on that even the client's problem or whatever the concepts what client is asking for. That times, of course, in advertising industry we don't have that much time, especially nowadays, but then also we don't feel the design, especially the youth coming from the arts college or the designer colleges, they are still in whatever they have seen in that few days in the social media, that is being completely influenced by them. So we want to have some, if we want to get some original, really different perspective, it takes much time. I have always felt that as a challenge, especially using the words while doing the content part.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. This one, yeah, you brought in, she has brought in theoretical aspects also. Interesting to see the unconscious sign. Just to say that robots don't have a super ego. So they will be doing. Yeah.
Hello, sir, I have a general question and open question. I'm from an educational institute. My name is Dr. Abdul Karim from PS Soma College, Tirurangade. The question is that everywhere the industry complaining that they are not getting readily employable graduates. Do you have any suggestion in the industry 4.0, to reduce the gap?
In the industry ready force is one of the things also. Our future workforce also, whether they are ready for is an important element. Tawfiq, you want to take or?
I think for that, especially the companies or the entrepreneurs should be apart from the government, because we have skill development program in bridging the gap between the college students and before they enter into the companies. They have some case government initiatives are there. But as a responsible entrepreneur, what I think some policies or mandates should happen, whether we should have at least 1 month or 3 month period where these students should be able to work in organizations where entrepreneurs should come up, companies should come forward to give them a chance to work. That is first to be done, rather than we doing the deliberations, we complaining. Especially I myself has complained to professor multiple times that I'm not getting a person resource, not with the degree. I want a person who have a sense, common sense, who can understand the problem of the client, and he should be able to think 360 degree. But unfortunately, why are we are complaining about the students who have been taught in a very systematic pattern? Are we giving a chance to them? Are we giving a chance for them to experience what the exact reality in an office is happening, rather than just expecting them to deliver something unbelievable things?
Yeah, so that brings in aspects like on-the-job training also. Yeah.
So primarily, if you look at countries like Germany and stuff where this is really practiced, they have apprenticeship training programs between enterprises and universities. So we highly encourage ITIs, polytechnics, universities to send students to work environments and do long-scale projects with us, whereby we will be completely open and transparent to do this sort of thing. So we encourage, or I would say the industry generally on a larger scale should be encouraged to do this sort of thing, and that will get the sort of students or that sort of population ready to understand what that working environment is like. So primarily, before I joined the company, I spent a long time training with the company. I was lucky enough to get the opportunity within the company and outside as well. But most of the learning happened with observation to understand what is the skill set required for the years ahead. So going forward, I think that would be, these apprenticeship training programs should provide that, student force with to get ready to go to a working environment. So I don't know, in different industries it will be different, but I think everyone should participate in that so that could be taken forward.
Yeah. So we can take two more short questions. I know so many hands are there. What we will do is that after this we will give you opportunity. Yeah, that lady. Yeah.
Namaste to all. Really appreciate the whole team for organizing such an event, and our panelists are also doing a wonderful job. Congratulations to them also. So we have discussed all the plus points and the minus points of AI and robotics. As we discussed, the world is growing so fast, and a lot of transformations are taking place. This is happening in one side, and when we look at the other side, in our state also, the employmental issue is growing rapidly. There are so many young professionals, like what he said, there are so many BTech professionals in our state also, as most of the panelists are established entrepreneurs already. So what we could do from our side to fill the gap or to get connected with those people to this job opportunities. We know there are so many opportunities, but these professionals are not getting connected to that job world.
So yours is a very broad thing in terms of the job market. How do you get into the job market? You're looking for a fit, or you're getting just for a job?
No, unemployment issue is raising, especially in our state also. So how can we resolve that issue? Because there are a lot of job opportunities, and most of the panelists sitting here are graduated from abroad, I think, not in India. But the graduates from our locality is not getting the opportunities to get involved in those professions. What we can do to the society for filling that gap?
So it is like going into the corporate, your problem is that kind of corporate jobs are not available in Kerala. That's one. So it's a very wider issue that we cannot discuss, we can sit full day. Yeah, one more question I will take. Yeah.
Hello, I am Sayuj, a mechanical engineering student from NIT Calicut. I am very happy to share my concern with all these great personalities. So we are living in a world where the technological growth is more than exponential, and incorporating this technology in our industry is very, very important. So we are talking about this industry 4.0. It's actually merging the physical, digital and virtual world all into unification. It's all about the industry 4.0. And thinking about this industry 4.0, and as they start to impact the daily life of all people, I'm very sure that it's gonna affect how we feel, how we think, and how our emotions work, and how we interact with our day-to-day task also, because everything is becoming automative and all. So my concern is, sir, there is an organization like United Nations to conserve peace in our world. So I guess there should be an organization to conserve the emotions of humans, or conserve the equilibrium between the human and this technological growth, because this industry 4.0 is going to impact very, very high level in our day-to-day life. So I guess there should be an organization to conserve this equilibrium between human and this technological impact. So I need to know the opinion from the panel.
Yeah, Vimal, you want to say?
I think it's a very good suggestion, especially in the age where we were trying to preserve what is human in the highest amount of technological advancement. So it's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and the question will be that whether it is a regulated body or a government body or a private consortium. So this is still evolving, so it might take some more time. So I have been, the time we have overshot. I know that still there are a lot of questions, but I would say that during the lunchtime, you can interact individually. ഇവരെല്ലാം നമ്മുടെ ആളുകളാണ് കേട്ടോ, പേടിക്കേണ്ട ഒരാവശ്യവും ഇല്ല. You can approach. So I thank the panelists to bring this. This is a very difficult topic with this multiple objective. That's why the ministry also is looking to extract from some 50 cities. So it's not easy solution. I really appreciate all the panelists who have brought in their, they lived up to their diverse backgrounds, and to the unanswered questions. Like we have put more of exclamation marks than questions in front. So with that, I thank all the panelists and those who asked questions and those who listened. I thank all of them, and I request now the MC. The last part is a vote of thanks, right?
We have now come to the end of an eventful session. So, moving forward, I now request Vice President Mr. Nityanand Kamath to formally propose the vote of thanks. Yes. So before moving to the formal vote of thanks, there is something important that we have to do, because we have all been enlightened with so much of information today. So we really need to thank our panelists. So I would request the President of Malabar Chamber of Commerce, Mr. M.A. Mehboob, to please come forward to present moment list to all the panelists. Thank you so much. And now I request the Vice President, Mr. M. Nityanand Kamath, to formally propose the vote of thanks.
Before I get to the formal vote of thanks, let me express that this was one of the best programs we had conducted in the near future. And we didn't know how the time, we would have taken more questions, the panel would have taken more questions, and this would have gone on for a couple of more hours. I could feel the energy from the participants and the inputs from the panel members. But it's late for lunch, and we are going to hold you close to us. We'll have many more programs in the future with this brilliant panelist and the participants. President Malabar Chamber of Commerce Mehboob, representative of Research and Information System for Developing Countries, Mr. Ali Said, moderator for today's session, Professor Om Kumar Krishnan, the brilliant young panelists and the participants, invited members, ladies and gentlemen. We at Malabar Chamber of Commerce are very fortunate to have got this wonderful opportunity to host Y20 brainstorming session in collaboration with RAS and Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India. As you know, this event is one amongst the 50 events hosted in different cities across the country as part of G20. The objective of Y20 is to engage the young members of G20, an intergovernmental forum that focuses on global economic issues like financial stability, climate change mitigation, sustainable development, and encourage future leaders to interact and raise awareness on global issues. The objective is to exchange ideas, debate, negotiate, and reach consensus on such important matters concerning the future of today's youth. This session was brainstorming on future of work in the background of technological innovations like robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, quantum computing, etc., which we dealt about for the last 2 hours. The panelists and the participants did exactly that. Brilliant ideas and suggestions on the opportunities and challenges, ways and means to face the challenge and to take advantage of the opportunities emerged from this interaction. In the inaugural session, we had the gracious presence of our worshipful Mayor, Dr. Beena Philip, as the chief guest. On behalf of RIS, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Malabar Chamber of Commerce, I extend a heartfelt gratitude for accepting our invitation and gracing this occasion in our absentia. Mr. Ali Said, G20 consultant and representative of Research and Information System for Developing Countries, has taken the trouble to come all the way from Delhi to be part of this Y20 event. We at Malabar Chamber of Commerce are thankful for his guidance and support. On behalf of all Malabar Chamber of Commerce extend a hearty thanks to Mr. Ali Said. Today's moderator, Professor Om Kumar Krishnan, was instrumental in getting this opportunity to host this event in Calicut and for Malabar Chamber of Commerce to associate with Y20. Right from the planning stage, Professor Om Kumar was working closely with us to make sure that the objective of this meet is achieved. We took real pain to select each one of you, and make sure that we have the best of participants here. And of course, the panelists, we took real care to get panelists from different parts of our engagement and industry so that we could bring in a different perspective. You all have seen how he had professionally steered the discussion and extracted the best out of the young panelists and the participants. On behalf of Malabar Chamber of Commerce, I extend a heartfelt thanks to Professor Om Kumar Krishnan. The real stars of today's event are the budding leaders of the future, the young panelists. Ms. Sunita Sudhakar, Kailash Nath, Vimal Govind, Ms. Dina Jacob, Vinay James Kennedy, and Tawfiq Ahmed Moidu, and you participants. Dear friends, you all have done justice to the event with your active participation and collectively bringing out such great insights. On behalf of RAS, Ministry of Youth Affairs, and Malabar Chamber of Commerce, I extend a heartfelt thanks to all the panelists and the participants for accepting our invitation and being a part of Y20 brainstorming session. A big thanks to everyone. Our sincere thanks to the press and visual media for all the support extended to this event, Y20, by effectively reaching it to the public. I also thank Malabar Palace for the excellent arrangements. A big thanks to all of you, and I request you all to please stay back and join us for lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request the President of Malabar Chamber of Commerce, M.A. Mehboob, to please give away the memento to one of the panelists, Mr. Vimal Govind. Thank you, sir. Now I request all the panelists, the moderator, the organizers, that's the organizers of Malabar Chamber of Commerce, to please come on the stage for an official photo session. And all the participants also. I invite everybody to join for an official photo session. Okay. The first official photo with the panelists, the speakers, and the organizers of Malabar Chamber of Commerce. Please join this dais for the official photo session. Thank you. Now I request all the participants to please join for the photo session. Everyone please join. Before we move for the lunch, thank you everybody for coming for the photo session. I request everybody to please stand up for the national anthem. I repeat, I request everybody to please stand up for the national anthem. जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलजि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जाहे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय हिंद. Thank you everyone. I request everybody to kindly join us for the lunch. Thank you.